Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. See if my volume is up. Mic check. Joe Black is in the building. What's going on, fam? Andre Edwards, what's going on? What up, Dre? Hey, what's going on, Complex Design? Now that you guys can hear me, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 275, Economics. Please hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so that you get all of the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community page. Tonight is economics. Ghana Warrior, what's going on? Give me a few seconds. I could pull up. Okay, I could pull up the docket. This is, all right. Just as an FYI, as usual, we are not certified financial planners. If you want a certified financial planner, please go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. We do not give out financial advice on this channel. If you want to join the panel, make sure you raise your hand first, or else I won't see you waiting in the queue. Because I have multiple screens open, but I don't have any way of knowing that you're there unless you raise your hand. So if you're going to join, make sure you raise your hand. We'll get started with the first item on the docket. All right, so first item on the docket is from AOLfinance.com, or Yahoo Finance, sorry. An important step forward, new Chase research reveals true weight of student debt. Student loan borrowers, particularly those who are younger and from lower income families, are spending up to 17% of their annual income on repayments, sometimes putting off basic needs to meet them, according to a comprehensive new report from JP Morgan Chase Institute. The research which used data from 4.9 million Chase checking accounts from 2012 to 2018 that made at least one student loan payment, presented a more nuanced picture about just how much debt borrowers have, as well as how exactly borrowers are repaying their loans. In some cases, families that were actively repaying their loans sometimes spend more on on their payments than on fuel, leading the study to note that families are spending more on student loans than key categories of basic necessities. DC-based Center for American Progress director of post-secondary education, Colleen Campbell, told Yahoo Finance. What is this? Hmm, sure what that's about.
It was good, Mike.
Yo, what's good, Complex, man?
Chilling, chilling, man. Back with another one.
Yes, yes, we are. Yes, sir. All right, let me get back to this article. I'm not sure what happened just now.
Yeah, I saw that.
D, DC-based Center for American Progress director of post-secondary education, Colleen Campbell, told Yahoo Finance that reports findings were an important step forward in looking at student debt as part of a person's whole financial situation, rather than just looking at debt in isolation. In a press release, J.P. Morgan Chase Institute president and CEO Diane Farrell stated, by standing the by understanding the relationship between these student loan payments and other financial outcomes, we hope to provide policymakers, lenders, and other stakeholders with viable information that can help shape policies to ease this burden for American families. While the scale of the study is massive, it's also important to note that Chase does not operate in all U.S. states. The median age of the student loan borrowers analyzed was 34, and the average gross income was $76,557. Their average student loan payment was $394, or 6.1% of their take home income. At that percentage, and that percentage rose among younger and lower income borrowers. Looking at Chase account holders aged between 25 and to 34, one in four one in four spent 11.8% of their income on student loan repayments, and a quarter of account holders below 25 spend 16.8% of their income on repayments. Broken down by income level, families that earn less than $50,000, they are making student loan repayments that comprise of roughly 7% of their take home income. And one in four of those families, that number goes up to 14.7%. Overall, the report found that families making student loan repayments spend a higher share of their take home income on student loans than on out of pocket health expenses, in particular over 2017. That pain is compounded as many millennials also struggle with their auto loans as well as their credit card debt. Serious delinquencies rose for both components in the first quarter of the year, according to data from New York Fed. This is and when borrowers face an income shock, such as if a borrower gets laid off or was in an adverse situation where they couldn't earn an income, the report indicated they'd scale back their student loan payments first by putting them into forbearance rather than the other components like auto loans and credit card debt. But since interest racks up on those in forbearance, that debt pile continues to grow while they attempt to fan the flames on the rest of their overall debt. Amid repayments, amid repayment troubles, many student loans are going into delinquency status or are in default. The report also suggested that applying the private sector's approach to federally held student loans could be a solution. The federal government does not apply risk-based underwriting, which could lead to borrowers taking on too much debt and being overly burdened by repayment costs, is stated. In contrast, the private loan market does apply actuarial pricing, and as a result, targets more credit-worthy borrowers to whom they can offer competitive interest rates compared to the federal pool, hence putting upwards pressure on interest rates in the federal direct loan program. On top of that, private student loans have a 98% repayment rate. So this is this is really a problem with federal student loans. Consumer Banks, Consumer Bankers Association VP of Congressional Affairs and Director of Policy Chris Fallon recently told Yahoo Finance on the Move, "There's a federal student loan crisis. The system is rigged in favor of the federal government." Doesn't surprise me. Another option, this time from Silicon Valley, proposes that firms embrace student debt as part of their employees' life. Goodly co-founder and CEO Greg Pollan, who had personally struggled with a student loans, that's poorly written, thinks that employers should pay off their employees' student debt as a benefit, just like how they offer 401ks. When I was in school, my father passed away very unexpectedly, Poland told Yahoo Finance. So to pay for school at Dartmouth, had to borrow about $80,000 in student loans. Then I then moved out here to San Francisco to start working for a human resources startup, and it's really difficult to do things like save for retirement, let alone think about saving for a house, start a family, because my monthly payments are over $900 a month. Poland's idea, which birthed his startup Goodly, is that just like how 401ks are offered to employees as a benefit, companies could use this startup software to also offer to help pay off employees' student debt, which he believes is a perk that many would appreciate. We could see that payoff in terms of recruiting and retention is a lot of companies. This is so poorly written. You will get benefits in companies, particularly other companies here in Silicon Valley, like some pretty ridiculous things like ping pong tables, cold brew, or dry cleaning for their employees. But at the end of the day, a lot of employees are struggling with student loans. So some people are paying up to 16% or a quarter of their income on student loans. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, there was an article I came across earlier in the week. Well, two of them. One about, a few colleges here in California shutting down due to low enrollment numbers.
Mhm.
And then I saw a larger article, and I posted it in the chat. U.S. colleges struggling with low enrollment are closing at an increasing rate, and the low enrollment is simply due to the fact that you have people who are now not pursuing higher ed because of the whole student loan thing. They can't afford to pay for it out of pocket. They're not about to indebt themselves for life to student loans. So now you have enrollment rates dropping across the board in all these colleges and stuff. So, there's ripple effects that come from this whole student loan thing. You know what I mean? So I thought it was interesting that this was the lead off article, given some of the other stuff that I had read, in the earlier part of the week.
Yeah, I think it's actually an interesting strategy to pay off an employee's student loan debt in the same way you would contribute to their 401k. I think that's
Yeah,
actually a really interesting strategy
yeah,
because what you would have to do for the company is you would have to allow them to make that a tax write-off. So if they pay, depending on how much, depending on how much student loan debt has been accrued when the employee has signed on, then what happens here is if their student loan debt exceeds their take-home income per week, then what should happen is employer pays off the student loan um, weekly, and the student, I mean, the student, and the employee contributes to their has more money to contribute to their 401k. So it would be whatever the employer was going to contribute to the 401k should actually be used to contribute to the paying down of the student loan debt.
right, right. And I actually think that's a pretty good strategy. There's always creative ways, or there's always ways to get creative with the numbers. Let's just say,
Hmm.
and it's really about it's really about thinking through a lot of thinking through a lot of theoretical ways that one could cover for a deficit here, and then also contribute in another area to kind of cover for the fact that you're covering for the deficit, right? It's just a reappropriation of dollars and figures,
Right.
so I really like the idea.
Hmm. Yeah, because if it's written off, then that's an incentive for the employer
Hmm.
to actually embrace a strategy like that, man. And
I
it,
would even say that there's probably even, if you've got a creative accountant, there's probably some tax incentives, right? Where
Mhm.
we're based on the fact that it's the employer paying off a loan debt, right, to an employee, you know, there's a portion of that payoff that could be reclaimed back in taxes at the end of the year, right?
That's what.
Versus,
Mhm.
versus the person himself that has to pay the student loan back. Like you're paying that shit back plus interest.
Mhm. What's going on, Dollar Will?
Hey, Dollar, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, fellas? I'm trying to work my way around Zoom while y'all are talking.
Oh yeah, man, this is the new setup, bro.
Yeah, go for it. I'm happy to know that my mic is working. I'll chime back in later. I'm still trying to check some things out with this.
Okay.
All right, let me get to this next article. All right, next one is from CNBC.com. Walgreens to close 200 U.S. stores. Walgreens plans to shutter 200 stores in the U.S. as the company pares back its location in the U.K. The company said Tuesday. Parent company Walbrooks Boots Alliance earlier this year announced plans to shutter 200 stores in the UK and review its US footprint. The new store closures represent less than 3% of its 10,000 locations in the US, Walgreens said in a statement, adding that it anticipates minimal disruption to customers and patients. It said it anticipates retaining the majority of employees in other nearby locations. Walgreens said it hopes to have $1.5 billion in annual expenses by fiscal 2022 in what it's calling the Transformational Cost Management Program. Walgreens expects to record a $1.9 billion to $2.4 billion earnings hit related to real estate, severance, and other costs, it said in a regulatory filing. As previously announced, we are undertaking a transformational cost management program to accelerate the ongoing transformation of our businesses, enable investments in key areas, and become a more efficient enterprise, the company said in a statement. A Walgreens spokesman said in the said the company does not plan to release the complete list of store closures and declined to share any more details about which locations will close. Analysts have long worried about the number of pharmacies in the U.S. In some cities, it seems Walgreens and CVS stores line nearly every block. Worsening the situation is the fact that consumers are shopping more online and less in stores. Retailers have already shuttered thousands of stores as foot traffic dwindles. Drugstores have so far largely spared. That could change as the company's sales of convenience items shrink and people start buying prescription drugs online. The announcement marks Walgreens' largest round of closures since 2015 when it also closed 200 stores. Its parent company, which bought 1,932 Rite Aid locations in 2018, has since closed 631 of those stores and plans to shutter another 119. In May, CVS said it would close 46 underperforming stores. In June, CVS head of retail warned it will close unprofitable stores as it evaluates its 500 leases that comes up for renewal every year. Man.
I mean, I was gonna say, man, Walgreens has so many stores. I think 200 is like a dipping your toe in the pool, right? Because they even out here in California, man, it seems like they're right. It seems like there's a damn Walgreens and a CVS on every corner. Now, I didn't know that Walgreens owned Rite Aid. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they bought them a few years ago.
Yeah.
In the economic downturn, they bought them.
Yeah, because well, at least out here anyway, they kept them as Rite Aid. So there'll be Walgreens in certain areas, or like on one block, and then maybe like a mile or two away there's a Rite Aid. But it's basically the same. It's basically the same company.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole lot of unemployment benefits, that is.
Well, they said the majority of people. I like how it was in quotes. They said that the majority of people would be reassigned to other stores, but
yeah, that's always tricky because a lot of times with companies, they will offer you a reassignment. For example, like companies are famous for, like, let's say you live in Los Angeles and they say, well, we opened a Wyoming center. You can transfer there.
Wyoming.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, well, we offered you the opportunity.
Well, you're an asshole, though.
I mean, that's how it goes.
That's how it goes, though.
The thing is, because the article pointed this out, that there's low foot traffic, and Dollar Will has been talking about the low foot traffic for some time now, leading to retail closures. People are buying online, and a lot of those retail service jobs, man, at least a quarter of those jobs are filled by African Americans, and those underperforming areas are usually low income areas. There's really no reason to keep. I don't know if anybody knows how much real estate is actually used for these stores. You're talking at least 10,000 square feet. That stuff is expensive. I think some of these places charge, to lease these stores, is something like $1.75 per square foot.
Yeah, some areas is like $2.50 a square foot.
Yeah, that's expensive. And when you figure in that people are not actually coming in, you have what is this, Uber Eats? I saw that somebody they posted this on social media before, that people are ordering chips and cookies through Uber Eats just to be delivered.
Yeah, dude, I was talking to I don't know if they got 7-Elevens. They have those in Boston?
Yes.
Okay. So I was talking to this dude who owned a 7-Eleven. Like, I have like one of my close homies, man. He works at 7-Eleven corporate. He's like one of their VPs. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to a 7-Eleven owner, and I was asking him about, like, the delivery. They were like, yeah, we have people come in. This dude told me that there was a dude who ordered literally a Snickers. Mm-hmm. Somebody literally summoned Uber Eats to go to 7-Eleven to pick up a Snickers and deliver it to him. You know, and then he was telling me about in other places, especially like in areas like where people live like up in like the hills, you know, like in like them Calabasas ranch areas and Mulholland and you know, and all them places like that where it takes them 10 minutes to leave their house to go to the closest 7-Eleven, CVS or whatever. They're like, man, screw that. I'll just have somebody pick it up and bring it to me. So these are those instances where literally people are like, yeah, I want like a bottle of soda, a bag of chips, and like Snickers,
Mhm.
and have it
It-
delivered.
and it's getting to the point where it becomes like a vending machine now.
Yeah.
So now you have this app on your phone and it says, chocolate chip cookies and a bag of Lay's potato chips and or Doritos or whatever it is, and you can have that delivered. I mean, the amount of gas and pollution that is spent on gas and pollution that is generated in the labor, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would be furious if I had to drive a mile just to drop off, a dollar bag of chips and a cookie. Like,
Well, what if they paid you like $7 to do it, 1 mile? Like that's kind of like the rationale. That's like the rationale with a lot of these, like Uber Eats drivers and Grubhub drivers and stuff like that. I mean, on the surface, they're like, dude, seriously, like a bag of chips, a cookie, and a Snickers. But then if they're getting $8 to do it for a little quick ride, they're going to drop it off. Then they're like, well, I guess.
yeah, but at some point there has to be a equilibrium that says that this doesn't make a lot of sense to pay the driver, spend this much money on gas to cover a bag of chips and a cookie.
It's literally that $8 literally like a convenience tax.
Mhm.
Like it's the cost that you pay for having somebody else go get it for you.
Mhm.
You know, that's really just what and some people have that rationale. Like, you know what? I don't feel like getting up, man. I just blew this blunt. I don't want to move. Let me
Mhm.
just grab my phone real quick, boop, boop, boop. You know, I think got Al in the chat. He's like, yeah, a recent app called GoPuff will
Mhm.
deliver convenience store items to your door. Yeah. Grubhub will do it, man. Uber Eats, they'll all do it. That's interesting though. GoPuff. I wonder where they got that name from.
Mhm.
And
But
what do
yeah,
you think is going to happen to the rates that Uber pays with this increased competition for the delivery jobs? That over supply of workers willing to do that type of work is going to drive the rates down.
well, yeah. That's what happened when Uber when they had a new rate policy. I think it was like back in 2016 because my brother was doing it from some time, and I remember like my brother was like he was like one of these OG Uber drivers. He's doing it years ago, and this dude was making a killing.
Mhm.
And then I remember 2016 hit, they changed their rates, just like you said. They had an influx of drivers hit the market because they had that I forgot what they called it, but basically, if you didn't have a car, you could just go to Uber and you could get a car through Uber and then go do the driving. So all these people started doing this Uber driving and they were just leasing cars through Uber. And next thing you know, you had an overabundance of drivers, rates went down.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's a disaster, man. Now I can see this working for like cannabis deliveries and stuff like that, things that are going to be lucrative and hard to get.
Yeah.
Uh, it's such scarce supply. But when you start talking about, um, a bodega around the corner from your house, and you're pulling out your phone saying, "I want, a bag of Doritos and a Snickers bar." I have to question one. I have to question your nutrition at that point, and then number two, um, it, there has to be uh, somebody has to be looking at this saying, this is increasing the obesity in America, that people are not even willing to get up and go get their own mail from out the mailbox. Like, there's somebody there to come get it for you. I think they have a company called Mary Maids that does that.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was a big I was a big fan I was a big fan of like having that stuff done through scooter use. Like, if you're using a scooter that's electric, you go get on that thing, phone out real quick, make the delivery, come back, plug in, wait for the next delivery. Right? Okay. Now we're talking about a better profit proposition. because you're not, using a car that you're spending gas, the car payment, the insurance, all that type of stuff. So if you're doing it a different way, then I can see it, to be more profitable, like if it's done on a bike or something like that. But still, just on the other side of the equation, you're right, dude. It's like, damn, dude, like, don't people get up, go to the grocery store and buy groceries and cook anymore?
Nah, man. This
Jeez.
is like the new version of a doja, like a digital doja.
Right.
Go get me a pack of Black and Milds and a teeny juice. You a doja, go pick that up.
Go pick that up.
That's crazy, man. They're giving dojas jobs now. They don't. They dojas done gone digital.
Straight up, man. Go get me some Swishers.
Mm-hmm.
I roll mine in Dutchies, by the way. That's what I do. But
yeah, bongs over here.
Yeah.
All right, let me get to this next one.
Hey, before you do that, Mike,
Yes,
let me say something. You guys are not in a state like Florida. There are a lot of people who are housebound. A lot of people who have like psychological problems that free to go outside, especially New York City, or you live in a neighborhood where you're far from, like Florida, for instance. In the area where I live at, public transportation is like non-existent. And if you don't have a car, if you're an old elder person, don't have a car, or you have some kind of handicap or something, you need something like that. And if you feel like eating something, and you just want to have it, it's like ice cream, a pregnant woman with ice cream. Sweetheart, go get me some ice cream. You got to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and go 7-Eleven. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, believe the experience count. But if you live in New York City, say in the wintertime, and you live in Queens, for example, you live in a neighborhood where it's a walking distance to the market on the main street. You're going to need this kind of services. You know what I'm saying? So, and if you live in a place like Barbados, you really don't need it a lot because the amount of people living in the country. But you live in a place like Miami, Florida, or New York City, or San Fran, LA, you got millions of people living in areas like that. And this thing multiplies, the amount of people that you got.
Okay. All right, this next one from CNBC.com. FedEx is ending ground delivery contract with Amazon. FedEx said Wednesday it will end its ground delivery contract with Amazon and it won't renew it at the end of the month. This change is consistent with our strategy to focus on the broader e-commerce market, which the recent announcements related to our FedEx ground network have us positioned extraordinarily well to do, a FedEx spokesperson said. Shares of FedEx and Amazon were down at least 1% in the pre-market trading. Bloomberg first reported FedEx's decision. We are constantly innovating to improve the carrier experience, and sometimes that means reevaluating our carrier relationships. An Amazon spokesperson said, FedEx has been a great partner over the years, and we appreciate their work delivering packages to our customers. FedEx announced in June that it is ending its Express US shipping contract, which only affected air services. At the time, FedEx said it was a strategic decision that would not affect its other contracts with Amazon. At the time, FedEx said less than 1.3% of total revenue was attributed to Amazon during the 12-month contract, 12-month period ended December 31st. Dave Clerk, Senior Vice President of Worldwide Operations at Amazon, said in a tweet that he had nothing but respect for FedEx and called the move conscious uncoupling at its finest, not the conscious community. Amazon has continued to increase its own delivery network. In late June, Amazon announced a delivery service partners program in an effort to attract entrepreneurs who can create their own local delivery networks with up to 40 vans each. Wow. Earlier that month, it debuted a delivery drone. Will deliver. It hopes will eventually speed up delivery for Prime members in North America. Amazon also has a $1.5 billion hub opening in Northern Kentucky in 2021, where it's expanding its Amazon air fleet to include 50 planes. Amazon said its air network can make 2-day shipping possible almost anywhere in the US. Still, FedEx has helped to provide the last mile of delivery services, bringing packages to customers' doors. FedEx said in May it would expand its ground delivery service to run 7 days a week, starting in January. This is war.
Yeah, I was about to say, man, the way it sounds, dude, like FedEx was like, y'all trying to swallow us up.
Because having those entrepreneur shipping startups or whatever they want to call them, that's a way to push FedEx and UPS out of the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're literally squaring off with FedEx because you got a lot of people who have their own routes with FedEx, so they're like contractors with FedEx.
Right.
So they essentially do the same thing that these fleet drivers, these entrepreneurial fleet drivers would be doing with Amazon. That puts them literally in direct competition for fleet delivery services. And so Amazon is basically like, look, either you gonna lay down or get out of the way. And so FedEx was like, well, look, we see what you done to the US Postal Service. Like y'all ain't about to do the same thing with us. So we just gonna go ahead and split, and we're gonna work our own magic in whatever way we can. But yeah, I mean Amazon, the way they've been positioning themselves, it was almost as if it's like FedEx started to see the writing on the wall. Like, yo, look, at some point here in the not too distant future, either we're gonna get bought out by these dudes, or we're just, you know what I mean, or if we don't pivot now, it's gonna be a rocky road in the next couple of years.
Listen to that story. My crystal ball says, I bet there's some kind of preferred rate that FedEx charges Amazon, and that rate was calculated based on a certain volume of packages that Amazon would provide for, delivery business that Amazon would provide to FedEx. Now, if that volume starts to go down, then FedEx is going to lose money by honoring that contract.
Right. Yep.
So FedEx is probably seeing a reduction in the volume, which reduces the amount that they can bill to Amazon, and it probably hit that critical point where they're not making money but losing money by even being associated with Amazon at that negotiated rate, at that contract rate that they have.
I agree 100%. That's exactly how I was seeing it right there.
But I can't imagine Amazon or a customer, not being able to use FedEx at a full standard rate.
I mean, that's just amazing, man. I mean, because it's like you said, dog. Well, okay, if it's based on volume, and if you're FedEx, you're like, well, hold on. So wait, you mean these packages that we could be delivering, you got drones doing it now, and
Right.
These packages that we could be delivering now, you got your own, fleet of route drivers who basically, who do you think we was giving these deliveries to? We were giving them to our route drivers.
Yeah, and the packages that I am delivering is probably under like some contract rate that we have that's so low that I'm losing money delivering this package.
But maybe that's what Amazon was anticipating.
Oh,
Right.
no, I mean, it seemed like it. Like just listening, when you was reading the article, I'm like, dude, like Amazon was kind of angling to either basically angling to swallow them up.
Yeah, and they were getting over like a fat rat in a cheese factory off of this, and FedEx and UPS looked at this and said, "This doesn't make any sense. Time to move on and switch strategies," because although it only made up for less than 2% of their annual income, it made up for a lot of their their day-to-day operations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's counting for more than 10% of my annual deliveries in these last mile locations, and only and it's less than 2% of my annual revenue, yeah, nice doing business with you.
Right. You know, Al, you're you're absolutely correct, man. We've always said this, and I mean, this has been stated in other media outlets. Amazon is more of a logistics company than they are an online retailer.
Right.
Like the retail side of it. The Amazon is primarily a logistics company and a tech company. The retail side of it gives it the activity. That's the activity, the selling of things, right? But logistics and technology with AWS, like that's their bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but some and part of that, the logistics success is Amazon is that they FedEx was like in close proximity. You know, I mean, like, didn't they have like a FedEx presence, a huge FedEx presence, like at the main Amazon distribution center that kind of helped things, expedited the shipment. I think I saw some with it, like in the same, property. It's like a FedEx next door
To Amazon?
to the Amazon to make the shipping faster.
That much faster.
I think I saw that somewhere. I want to look into that, because if that's the case, it's like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
They probably had a negotiation at some point about rates, and it didn't go right.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, we got 50 people watching and only 24 likes, man. Please hit the like button if you're not going to participate in the chat. Go ahead, dog. Will finish up.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, because to start your own, to take over shipping on your own, why would you do that unless the rate that you were getting from FedEx was something you felt that you could beat by doing it yourself?
Well, I mean, if them was it, they purchased Amazon purchased 50 planes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if that was any indicator, and then on top of that, FedEx is in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's a logistics hub for all, though,
right?
Tennessee,
and then they said that Amazon's going to be setting up shop, this $1.5 billion hub in Kentucky, which is right next door.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, damn, dude, like, you know what I mean? You kind of get this you gotta get this weird feeling, dude. Like, these dudes are trying to take us out, and yeah, damn right they are.
Mm-hmm. Paul Bryant, what's going on?
Good evening, gents.
Yo, Paul, what's going on?
Hey, boy. Evening. So, you know what? I wouldn't necessarily say Amazon is trying to actually take anyone out, but what I would say is that they are trying to make a significant inroad. So rather than, FedEx dominates the market, rather than Amazon looking to dominate the market, maybe Amazon is trying to say, okay, well, let's take a 30% stake, a 35% stake. Okay, so someone in the chat mentioned the word antitrust. It's funny you say that, because an interesting way to get around the Clayton Antitrust Act, rather than being a monopoly, you can heavily dominate an industry while there are still several competitors within the industry. So let's say you only control, say, 30 to 40% of the market, but yet there are 10 competitors. So you don't meet you don't meet the qualification that would trigger any action under Clayton antitrust. But if you're controlling 40%, but there's 10 competitors, you effectively control the market, but you don't have a huge lion's share per se. So when I look at all the myriad areas that Amazon is continually, like a spider, just putting out its webs everywhere or rather, I should say more like a like an octopus.
Mhm,
To me, it's actually brilliant business strategy.
mhm. Right, to create these sort of delivery startups, for these minority businesses, and then, but they really do business with you though. They
Bro, you
only
know
do
what?
business with you. They don't do it with anybody else.
Bro, there was a major construction project in New York City 20 years ago. It was called the JFK Air Train. So it was a elevated dual track monorail directly from JFK Airport over the Van Wyck Expressway to the Long Island Railroad major hub at the Jamaica station. So it was announced that 80% of the contract being that it was flying over and through three lower class black neighborhoods into one of the poorest in the city, which is Jamaica. 80% of the project would go to minorities and black contractors.
Mhm.
So what they did was 80% of the contracts went to black and minority contractors, but 80% of the money did not. So
Mhm.
that kind of highlights exactly what you just said.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how long Amazon can play the game for, because if there's a blip in the economy that we expect or we anticipate with another recession, the amount of money that they're spending by buying all these planes, making all these investments in these factories, making all these acquisitions, this may have a boomerang effect on them, because if the economy slows down and they don't have the same amount of volume in purchases, this could really hurt them, because once you make that investment, these are long-term investments, and you can't really turn the wheels back on construction of a $1.5 billion facility that's going to have less volume than year over year. That the money may not be returning it, despite the fact that they're this mega multi-billion-dollar corporation. If they're hemorrhaging like that over time, this will lead to a hard fall for them.
Well, there's a couple of things, right? They kind of have to do it, right? Because you got I know there's a new Alibaba operation that's going to be rolling out here in 2020 in the United States. See,
Mhm.
so now China's coming to U.S. shores to play ball, right? You see, so Amazon is still going to have to maintain its sharehold. They gotta maintain their dominance on the market. That's the first thing. So they have to put that investment up. But then the other thing too is that, I mean, dude, they're putting all the retail sector out, right? You see, so I don't really see a trend that's going to dip downwards in terms of people buying on Amazon, when all indications point to the fact that people are just going to be buying more and more off Amazon, because they're buying less and less from actual retailers,
Well,
like physical retail locations.
But now, bro, that air fleet,
The 50 planes.
Paul, your mic is breaking up a lot.
did they buy
Oh,
those
he's working.
planes or are right? Because if can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat that,
Hello?
Paul? Yeah, we can hear you. Can you repeat it? Repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. What I was saying is, those 50 planes, did did they buy them or are they leasing them? Because if
No,
they're
they buy them
leasing them,
Buy them.
secondhand. They buy them
Buy them
secondhand.
secondhand.
okay, which means they bought them at a low price. But so the way that I would see, and again, I don't know. I'm speculating. If they have assets that they can easily move out of, then a severe market downturn may not hit them quite as hard. Also, even if the market turns down, if they're positioned in other areas, other aspects of the business that can still make up or carry the company, if other areas are greater affected by an economic downturn, then they should be able to ride ride out if the economy turns down. But see, either way, they have to take these huge gambles.
Mhm.
It's the classic risk reward ratio. Okay, if you're hyper conservative and you don't want to mitigate risk, you're never going to make a lot of money. You won't lose, but you'll never make a lot. So,
well, you know, something else that just crossed my mind is that Amazon is actually getting into the to the pharmaceutical industry as well. So this is putting pressure on CVS and Walgreens now. Because the last article we read about Walgreens closing stores, they said people are ordering drugs ordering their
Order them
prescriptions
online. Yep.
So what happens when Amazon gets into that arena? I mean, at some point, someone's going to have to break up. Someone's going to try to break up Amazon at some point. I think Elizabeth Warren
I
maybe.
was gonna say that's her platform, man. Breaking up Facebook, Amazon, Google. You know,
which is exactly what I just said, bro. Amazon is doing an end around the Clayton Antitrust Act. They, without dominating any one industry, but if you can control 35 to 40% of numerous industries, you won't hit that bar where you will trigger, boom, this is a clear Clayton antitrust violation.
Hey, you guys, let me say something here. I think I see Amazon as, when Amazon came into business, you can you can go on Amazon and buy the majority of the stuff from an Amazon warehouse. Suppose I wrote a book, I listed at Amazon. Amazon would have 50 of my books on a shelf in a warehouse somewhere. Amazon now wants me to keep the books in my place, my storage place. And when somebody orders one, I ship it. Amazon is just moving into the market as a go-between. Like you guys are noticing that they're trying to push out FedEx. And that looks like what Amazon is really doing. When somebody ships something, when you order something, you order it through Amazon. They making a cut off that, and then you shipping it through Amazon. They're making a cut off that. But the other thing is that Amazon can afford to spend $1 billion to build something that they might never use. And if you go back to United Airlines bankruptcy, you see why I'm saying this. United had a hub in Indiana that the Indiana government spent, I don't know, 10 billion, 10, 20 billion on. United declared bankruptcy halfway into the contract that they made with the government of Indiana. And they have a write-off for 15 years.
Jeez.
For taxes. So when a company like Amazon spends $1 billion to do something, I mean, to them it's not a big investment.
It's not, indeed it's not, considering the fact that Amazon don't pay a damn dime in taxes anyway.
Right.
There you go.
Well, and then this brings into question: is Amazon too big to fail?
Not really. It's not too big to fail, but the government won't let it because you have, it's like like everybody always say, complex. You buying your politician. You know what I'm saying? And when you got your politician,
everybody understands that except black people. You buy
when you have your politician in your pocket, he's gonna come and say, "Hey, look, you can't do this because Amazon said they're gonna lose. We're gonna lose 10,000 jobs in the economy. And you got the governor from this state is gonna come and say, "Look, you can't do this because my state is, our tax base is based on this thing."
Well,
and when you see New York City look at something like that and say, "No, we don't want it," there's a reason why.
All right, let me get
too big to fail. Too big to fail was certain individuals losing their personal revenue streams. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, this next one is from investing.com. Roku's 233% rally in 2019 faces big test this week. For investors seeking high octane growth, shares of Roku have proven to be a great bet this year. They've surged 233% so far, defying trade tensions, macroeconomic headwinds, and the overall volatile trading environment for technology stocks. But that remarkable rally may come under threat when the video streaming platform releases its second quarter earnings on Wednesday after the market closed. What the hell just happened?
Green share go down again? Oh.
Yeah, having technical difficulties here.
I didn't know Master Roku was on the stock market now.
Master Roku. Man, yeah, 233% rally, man.
That's mean. That's pretty mean. I'd be interested in knowing. Well, they also said that a majority of their sales is coming from, these set tops, man. These little console boxes. So people are very much interested in Roku. But then again, when you say, when someone asks, what should I get, this person for Christmas or that person for Christmas, technology-wise, Roku is like one of the top 5 things that people actually go out and buy for Christmas.
Yep.
But they see a lot of these sales, despite the fact that, you have Amazon Prime, or what is it, Fire Stick.
The Fire Stick. You got Apple TV.
Apple TV hasn't sold anything since its inception. It doesn't really do any sales at all.
Yeah, my brother's like the only. Now I know 2 people that have that. 2, literally. That's it.
Yeah, it's actually trash. It's actually pretty trash compared to like something like a Roku or something like that.
Yeah, I have such a paperweight.
Yeah.
That's what it's been relegated to, Dollar Will.
Yeah, it's beside my Android box.
Yeah, the problem with the Apple TV is that it lacked services. It lacked any sort of services over the competition, and the competition was half the price, if not 1/3 of the price. So for Roku, they could sell their devices at $29, $39 right out the door, and it was nothing. And you're getting all these mega fantastic features with the Roku stick and the Roku box that the Apple just couldn't compete with. I never understood why Apple even went that route. People who talked about Apple TV, all these rumors, people were under the impression that there was going to be an actual TV set from Apple, not some stupid box that they put on underneath or on top of their TV.
Right.
So what really hurt them, for all intents and purposes, man, is the lack of creativity.
Well, I don't want to depart. Maybe we can circle back around to this after we get into the meat of the U.S.-China trade war discussion. But the Apple Card, I'd like to get your input on that, Dollar Will. Your thoughts.
Let me bring up this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, for whatever reason, my system must be going through an update. Who does updates on Friday nights? I don't even know. Microsoft has this.
Microsoft does. Well, while you're doing that, I mean, have you guys? So we've been kind of harping on Apple and their lack of innovation. They did come out with something new. They came out with a card.
That we covered that before.
Well, you can. It's literally it's on their website now. Like it's available for. Yeah. No, I'm just saying it's available now.
Right, and it's used for Apple purchases, right? So you want to buy a new iMac,
it's like okay, an Apple Card. All right, great. Apple Card.
The problem with Apple is that everybody is catching on to their game, and then you got small companies like you got companies that are building phones in India now that are biting into Apple's market. Not only Apple's market, Samsung's market, everybody's market. And then you got Huawei who's moving in. as a heavyweight and equal among these three, among the two, among the big two. So Apple is now can't come up with something as innovative as what they stole from other people before. Hey,
Well,
the facts are facts.
But look, man, you know, Trump's administration is literally doing everything to keep Huawei out. Oh man, this was just earlier this week. It was something. There's like a full on ban of Huawei products, even on down to the. Oh man, it was. I caught it earlier this week, but they're like freezing Huawei completely out of the markets here in North America, U.S. and Canada.
You know, have you noticed a repeat of history with Apple? So there was a falling out between Steve Jobs and Woz, and the company went into a flat tailspin for years. So they had the little Microsoft on again, off again partnership. Steve came back, another falling out. Only this time he kicked Woz out of the company. Steve turned the company around, innovation after innovation after product after product. When Steve finally stepped down, instead of letting Johnny Ive take the reins, he let Tim Cook take the reins.
Yep.
Tim Cook is a bean counter. Johnny Ive is as much
He's your innovator.
Exactly. He's as much responsible for Apple products as
Jobs.
As Steve was. So if Apple is going to be a hardware and innovation company, why would you not let the man who actually physically made these innovative hardware products run the company as opposed to a typical American corporate bean counter?
Well, Paul, Ives just walked. He left.
Yes, he did.
Well, because those type of guys, those innovators, don't make good leaders either. They tend to lack managerial skills and public relations skills as well. So although they can innovate behind the scenes, they put them on Front Street, man, and they're like a deer in the headlights. So I think that's where Tim Cook comes in. And they did not. My understanding that they were going to actually have a woman lead up Apple. Whatever happened to that, I have no idea. Most of the women who are in these leadership positions actually jumped ship from Apple in the last year and a half. So especially the last one that we covered, who was like the head of Apple stores, she left.
But you know what though, Mike? What I've noticed is that the corporate American structure, going back to the early '90s, when I first started working in corporate America, there was, at that time, it was a budding concept that you don't need to know anything about the company. You don't need to know anything about the products. All you need to know how to do is how to manage people and just find the right people, put them in the right areas, and then step back and let things run itself. So personally, I disagree with that mindset, especially how the automotive sector, how the German and Japanese approach to it, versus that American corporate mindset. So, I understand that Tim Cook is a great bean counter, but as a person who never understood either the hardware or the software, I personally do not think he was a good choice to lead the company. You needed someone who was creative at the very least. You're right about Johnny Ive, guys like that, they really can't lead, but you should have found someone, if not Woz, someone like Woz at the very least.
Or let him do it. Let Tim Cook count the beans.
Maybe he ate all the beans too.
That's one of those things that changes when you go from a maverick company to a very large cap company like that.
A maverick company or a maverick operating system? Maverick operating system or maverick company?
Maverick company. You have a very powerful board. you know, when you get to the size of like where Apple is now. You know what I mean? They were, if you thought they were powerful when they basically fired Steve Jobs, you know, it's much more powerful now. The stakes are much bigger now. So yeah, the bean counter type is what you usually end up with when you're talking about a corporation that big. It's too much money involved, and the staffing levels are so great. I'm sure they have you know, there are ways to incorporate the creative types.
Yeah, but they didn't, dog. Well, I mean, under Tim Cook, it's been a watch and a credit card.
Exactly. It's been
Yeah.
absolutely
Wireless
nothing.
earbuds too.
And then, you know, look at you know, again, as I said, the automotive industry makes this point brilliantly. Every German car company and every Japanese car company, every head of the company has come from engineering or from racing, either or. They are car guys through and through. They're running a car company. There are plenty of bean counters around them, but the only person who takes the top spot is a car guy through and through. If you don't understand the nuts and bolts of the business, you know, no matter how big or how global the company is, you have to understand the core essence of what it is that you're doing. Any Anybody can just count the beans. You know, what has Tim Cook done? Realistically, absolutely nothing.
Well, he lacks that area, but he also has been, you know, the fall guy for the lack of innovation at Apple, right? But because they still had Johnny Ive.
True.
So why haven't they done anything since then? It's not like
Excellent
this guy
point.
on vacation. I mean, he was still an
He was
innovator.
there. He was there the whole time.
It
Excellent point.
sounds to me like there's been an internal fight between the innovators and the capitalists, shareholders who are saying, go buy Beats, go buy another company with all the money that you have. And you know, the innovators at Apple, the tenured people were like, that's not how we do things here. You know,
Which is an excellent point that I wanted to bring up. I don't know if you remember an article. Rather, no, I don't remember if I sent the article out when Johnny Ive announced that he was leaving Apple. There were numerous reports that said that over the years, when Steve passed the reins to Tim Cook, there were many meetings and many disagreements between Johnny Ive and Tim Cook. Johnny Ive wanted to continue to innovate and continue to make products, and Tim basically said no. Again, these are all second and third hand accounts. We don't know obviously how true they are, but
Man, let's
he
read the
has
tea
left.
leaves, man. I've walked.
Exactly. Everyone
He's
knows
been
that.
that dude been there so long, seen so many successes. Man, it takes a lot for you to walk away from something when you've been the brains behind so many iconic products. You don't walk that easy, dude.
Exactly.
Like something had to like basically put you out.
Well, I don't think it's that. I mean, in general, I agree with you. Let me just say that. However, in times like this, where you know there's broad speculation that we're you know, looking at a market correction, you're going to see a lot of people walk because they could cash out easier. You'll see a lot of people start cashing out. Who wants to be in the company when the ship is sinking? Leave, take the money, run.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't see. That's the thing. Apple isn't. They're not sinking. They just ain't going nowhere.
No, I mean, who wants to be there while the share price is just getting devoured? When if you leave the corporation, I mean, Paul can explain this a little better. But aren't you free? Aren't you more free to liquidate, Paul, if you're not a high officer of the company? Aren't you're free of those restrictions to be public about your sale of stock if you're like a high officer in a corporation?
That only applies if you are an insider or if you are a member of the board of directors. To my knowledge, Johnny Ive, while he was the head of creative design, is not a member of the board of directors. So he should not be subject to to those restrictions.
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess you can say that the Apple car, the autonomous vehicle, whatever it's supposed to be, is their ace in the hole, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. So
And I don't see it.
Well, unless they got a, like Mike said, an ace in the hole with that car. Apple really is not a company that designs and manufactures stuff anymore. It's turning into a service company.
yeah,
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, it seems like the majority of their product portfolio is Apple services, and their product lineup is relatively slim when you really look at it.
Yeah, that's the route that IBM went. Did IBM go that same route?
Yep. Yeah, they stopped making
they
computers
doing
at
now?
some point, at a certain point.
What are they doing now? And what used to be their core competency, which was the iMac, the Mac Pro, and the MacBook, they haven't innovated there. From the first iMac to the second iMac to the current iMac, you know, groundbreaking. Since then, nothing. They're just getting thinner and thinner and thinner. They've taken out the CD-ROM drive. No innovation. You know, you had the
And some
wireless mouse.
questionable products. I mean, that Air laptop never made sense to me. Okay,
really?
it's a weird price point between an iPad and that. It's just weird. When they came out with the Mac Mini, and they just completely gutted. I mean, the desktop industry. Why buy a desktop at all?
Yeah.
Well, you have to understand that a MacBook Air is the ultra portable, and the iPad, for all intents and purposes, was just a tablet. It did not have the same functionality. Despite the fact that you can buy a keyboard for it, it was nowhere near x86 compatible. You couldn't run the same applications on a MacBook Air on the iPad. It's just two different platforms.
I hear you,
my
but I know people
understanding,
who own iPads, who used to own laptops. They're fine with it, and I know people who said that they're likely never going to buy another laptop. They're happy right there with the iPad.
because they're not using power applications. Once you start
Right.
getting into video editing and broadcasting, and
Right.
stuff, that iPad, you start to see the
The
weaknesses.
deficiencies, yeah. Yep.
But my point is, Apple was successful at getting people to buy more computer than they needed. Okay, people were spending the several thousands of dollars when they really only needed a $600 device. So they came up with the $600 device, and now they're losing that money. With people were paying for more computer than they needed.
Right. And those days are going away now because the price of a laptop, and plus Microsoft is in the building. They got the Microsoft Surface, recent Surface Pro, right? I think Lionel owns two of them. That's how good they are. He likes them. He raves about it. So it's just one of those things that Microsoft has studied Apple's playbook and has beat them to the punch with the Surface. And Apple doesn't have a response. They're still having a basic laptop that just has a half-eaten fruit on the back of it. And you can't sell that anymore.
I mean, they're hedging at this point, man. They're really, really, really hedging on the phones. I mean, that's
their
why
bread and
the iPhone 10 is, if you get the 10R, the new one, it's like a G, and people are actually signing up to buy the shit. You know what I mean? So it's like if you could supplant a lot of those high-end laptop sales that and especially the towers. I mean, hell, I had a tower. When I was doing music production and stuff, all my rigs were Mac. It was like when I stopped doing music, I didn't have a reason to buy Mac computers anymore.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Apple products is if you're the first one to get it, you're the proverbial alpha male, right? If you're a guy,
that experience, that unboxing, the experience, the having it, people are not willing to pay that premium anymore.
Oh.
It's like that shininess of that Apple experience. people are like that they just don't want to pay that premium 3 to 4 times over with something else that can do the same exact things just for the Apple experience now.
Well, with a damn with an Android laptop.
Yeah, or a Chromebook.
Chromebook, yeah.
And you know, everyone, something else that everybody has now copied. Everybody has copied that Apple packaging, just the boxes, the containers, taking it out, unboxing it, was all part of that Apple experience. Now you can damn near buy a freaking toothbrush that comes in this crazy expensive packaging. Everybody's doing it now.
Yeah. And the thing is, the return on investment is not there. What happens when your MacBook has a battery issue or it has a screen issue, or the keyboard button stop working, and or your the accessories, right? The charger is fray, and they stop charging. You have to pay a bundle just to get the charger from the store. That becomes a problem because a famous Black Brain Trust member went to an Apple store and demanded a new logic board, man, and it was, it was a hassle for them, sitting at the Genius Bar. They were unwilling. They were unwilling until got Minister Farrakhan on the phone and got that on.
Well, I have to say, Apple did well by me. They
I bet they did. Did their stock price go up?
Another area where they kind of blew it is there used to be some value people placed on being in the Apple ecosystem, but with the rise of like streaming media, other online services, and the Apple TV becoming a paperweight, I don't think the Apple Watch. I don't really know too many people who have the Apple Watch.
Actually, they just released the report this week, and the Apple Watch is one of the highest grossing Apple products selling in 2019. 5 million.
Everybody has an Apple Watch.
And the reason why they have the watch,
price point,
the reason why they have the watch is because you can't use the watch without the iPhone.
Yeah, you can't. Everyone has those things. Oh, and you know that lawsuit that.
Go ahead, Dollar.
No, I'm just trying to process what you said. You can't. So if you can't use, you can't use the watch without the phone. So the watch is driving phone sales, or the other way around.
Phone is driving the watch sales because there's no point in getting a watch if you don't have an iPhone.
Yeah, because I went to go get a watch for my mom, and they said it won't work without the iPhone. I said, "Excuse me, we have an iPad already." Oh, well, that's not enough. You need an iPhone. Oh, no.
Right. So in that case, the watch would be driving sales of the phone. Because if you determine to get a watch, then they tell you that there's no use of getting a watch unless you get a phone. Then
people aren't going to spend $600 on the phone just to
get a watch.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. It's the opposite way around. And the people who have the phones want the watch.
But you just said that the iPhone is that the watch is a high grosser.
It's a high grosser because it's a high grosser because people who have the phone are the only ones who can actually use the watch.
So they'll go and buy the watch.
Oh, gotcha. So it's like a value added proposition.
That's basically what it is.
Have the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. But wow, but that's still I'm still doing better than that. But maybe my opinion is what it is, because I know people who do not have the newest phone and don't really plan on getting it.
Well, you don't need the newest phone to get the watch. I think you just need to be running like iPhone. You have to 11.4 and up or iPhone.
Well, not the OS, but it's the phone itself. So iPhone 7 is what.
7 and up. Yeah.
Paul Bryant, you were gonna say something before I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make mention that after the the $1 billion or what was it $100 billion lawsuit that Apple lost because
Samsung?
Yes and no. They've lost several, but the one specifically dealing with the fact that Apple releases software updates specifically to disable your devices to force you to buy something new. So
Right.
people caught on and they stopped downloading updates to keep their devices working because they work so well. And unless you drop it or throw it up against a wall, you have no reason to continually buy new devices.
Right.
So there's that. So the reason why I mention that is after that cat has been let out of the bag, that has also hurt sales.
I mean, I'll admit, man, the iPhone 10 looks dope, and it's got that dual depth camera. I mean, if you've seen some of the video quality it shoots, it's amazing. But dude, it's like $1,000 for a phone.
Well,
Yeah,
got people don't have any problem now, missing a few meals to take a selfie.
Eating ramen noodles.
yeah,
Well,
but
if that.
but
Take a
keep but
selfie with the
keep in
ramen
mind
noodles.
but keep in mind one thing: from the iPhone 4, the phone has been costing $900. The difference is now they're asking for the money up front. So whereas before the phone was 950 or 900, you would put what 200 down, and then you would finance the rest over a 2 year contract. So at the end of the 2 years, or after 18 months, you would pay off the remaining balance and apply that toward another new phone. So the phone has actually cost that much money for years now. Only
Yeah, well,
now you're seeing it up front.
right, right. And the thing is, Samsung is about to release the Note 10 Plus that is
Mhm.
going to obliterate
Hmm.
Apple, all Apple's products. I don't know if you guys have seen the first reviews of it so far this week, but that thing is on another level of computing that I haven't seen before in a long time.
Well, I'll say this: I have a Samsung Galaxy Note 4, and yes, it's old. Yes, it's from 2020, 2015. I haven't upgraded it. I haven't changed it. I haven't needed to, but I'm seriously thinking about getting this brand new Note to replace that phone. Only thing is, now that I split my time between two countries, that's a couple of months
Yeah.
where it's a literal paperweight until I come back to the States.
Well, it has dual SIMs, or at least it should have an international slot so that you can add a international SIM for
Okay.
Voda and Orange and those other companies in Europe.
Mhm.
So that way you switch time. My One Plus has that feature, so I can have two SIMs in my phone. I have one for domestic calls and one for international, and I can switch the data, and it assigns you the number, and it rings differently if you get international calls versus domestic. So this is actually the way to go.
And I'm pretty sure Apple has nothing like that, even coming down the pipe.
Yeah, well, I think at some point in the next 10 years, everybody will just be under one global network anyways. That's going to probably go away with 6G. Anyways,
Yeah.
let me finish this article real quick.
Yeah, there'll be one nation under a groove.
Oh my God, man, terrible. They surged 233% so far, defying trade tensions, macroeconomic headwinds, and the overall volatile trading environment for technology stocks. But that remarkable rally may come under threat when the video stream platform releases the second quarter earnings on Wednesday after the market close. These shares have slumped in the past three sessions, ending Friday down 0.3% at $100.53 a share. So this is the chart. Maybe Dollar Will can point out if there's any candles here, but where it started from in first quarter of first quarter of 2018 to where it is right now is actually pretty significant.
Yeah, I'd have to see more information, but that looks like a pretty mature move there. I mean, especially when you say anything that has risen 233%, that's enough to get your attention and to put the little pause in your game. Maybe you're coming in a little late to the party.
Roku is expected to report an adjusted loss to about 23 cents a share on a revenue of about $224 million, which will represent revenue growth of more than 43%. Roku, which went public in 2017, sells devices that permit users to stream video on their televisions. It also sells advertising on Roku channel and allows TV networks to sell spots that target specific audiences. Over the years, Roku has seen explosive growth as a tech company, a tech platform that's already preloaded on certain TVs. According to Bloomberg data, 10 of the top 20 selling TVs on Amazon are Roku connected TVs. To add depth to its revenue base, Roku also sells ads for its free streaming product called the Roku Channel, which offers a variety of network and other TV shows and entertainment. One major boost that many analysts see for Roku is that large media giants such as Disney and AT&T are preparing to launch their own streaming services, and these additions are likely to increase demand for Roku's products and services. The stock has been volatile ever since its market debut in 2017. The price surged more than 40% in the first 9 months of 2018, before ending the year down by the same amount. And so far in 2019, Roku has then more than tripled in value, outperforming almost every other technology stock. But after this remarkable rally, there are reasons to be cautious about Roku. Its shares trade at around 14 times their sales. That is lofty even by tech stock standards. Amazon.com, for instance, trades at around 3.5 times sales, while Apple trades at 3.56 times sales. On these concerns, RBC Capital Markets downgraded Roku to sector perform in July, citing valuations that have become less compelling following the powerful advance this year. Currently, 7 analysts recommend buying Roku, while another 7 have a hold rating on the stock. According to Bloomberg data, 2 firms have sell ratings, while the average price target of $84 implies downside of about 16%. Bottom line, there's nothing wrong with Roku's business model. The company remains a great potential growth story in its niche market, which is exploding as more and more people cut cords and move to video streaming services. That being said, its stock is becoming vulnerable in the short run and should be avoided, especially ahead of earnings, which led to be quite volatile for its stock. Roku shares have seen more than 20% moves of more than 20% each of its past 4 reports. So let me go to Roku site. You guys can jump in.
Yeah, that's too rich for my blood, man. Something with you talk about the price to sales or price to earnings, anything that's like the super premium price at this point in the market. I don't know. Not my style.
10 of the 20 TVs on Amazon listed are Roku based. I have 2 of them in my house right now currently.
Hey, Dollar, I got 2 in my house too. My son's got both of them. So and they're into tech,
Yeah, people seem to like them everywhere I go. My sister has one as well. Very, very interesting that people are really into it. I'm a tech person myself, and I don't actually own one per se. I have Chromecast, but then again, that's how I watch YouTube, and YouTube's the only thing I do watch.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I have. I have a Chromecast.
Sprint gave me Hulu, and one of my sons got Netflix, but both of them still got Roku.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Yeah. It's interesting, man. All the TVs I've come across with Roku built in, I haven't been impressed by them. So what I do is I always buy a naked TV, and just plug in, whatever accessory I have, because it seems like they compromise on the quality of the TV, just to add Roku into it. I don't need my viewing experience to be compromised just so I can have a few streaming services. That's not necessary.
Personally, I'm not a huge fan of streaming services so far. So
Really?
yeah, I'm really not. I have my PS4. My daughter has her own PS4, and I have my Mac and I have my iPad and I have the phone and I have cable. I only have HBO and Showtime. And if my daughter wants something for like a show for a season, I'll pay it for the season, whatever, cut that off. And I'm actually a big fan of Cody.
I bet you are.
So
There's that word. I was wondering how long it's going to take for that word to come up.
I'm a big fan of Cody, huge fan of Cody. So works really great on my Android, and my brother has a some Nvidia something, and he has
Oh,
the
Shield.
yes, exactly. So he has that paired to his 70-inch screen TV, and the Cody on that thing is amazing.
Mhm.
So so when I'm on the other side of the pond, it's Cody all day. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, man. And I want to kind of slide black content creators on YouTube. Um, those companies like Roku are always looking to add channels to their growing catalog. And if you produce really good content, that's exactly what they're trying to do is position themselves with high growth content. I think Marquise Brownlee probably even has a channel on Roku. So um, not on Roku. I think maybe on Hulu or something like that. I think there's been rumors about taking content creators and bringing them onto other platforms like that. So we've been kind of mindful about the content we produce because we would like for one day to have that opportunity that we can be on a very profitable platform like Hulu and a Roku streaming stick or something like that. So I don't know if we'll ever end up on Cody, but that's a Cody in Bollywood. That's not really our thing. Anyways, let me get to this next article.
Yeah, well, in fact, they do have some Cody bills that feature YouTubers. It's already there.
Hmm. All right, this one is from the AmericanProgress.org. Simulating how progressive proposals affect the racial wealth gap. Wealth, a household, wealth, a household's asset minus its debts, is a key measure of financial well-being. Unfortunately, the United States is home to stark and persistent racial disparities in household wealth. While various proposals exist with the aim of shrinking the racial wealth gap, estimates of their long-term effects are limited. A new simulation developed by the Center for American Progress demonstrates how separate proposals implemented today in combination or in isolation would reduce racial disparities in average wealth. Total wealth divided by the number of households in the United States by 2060. The simulation, uh, the simulation specifically tracks white and black couples who are currently beginning their careers and starting to accumulate wealth and compares their total projected household wealth as they near retirement. So here is the chart. So black wealth at 317,000 and white wealth at 1.87 million. So white wealth versus black wealth is the difference is 5.9 times and projected for 2060, and the racial wealth gap is 1.5 million by 2060. We can go to fair housing. So fair housing, when you click on fair housing, it actually increases. It increases the wealth gap only by a few percentage points. Go to debt-free college. Wow. Oh, okay. So if you take away, so if you if you take away debt-free college, then what happens here is it increases black people's wealth. So rule of thumb here is for black people, don't go to college.
I
EDX
seriously
is your
hope that
friend.
was a joke.
What was that again, Paul?
I seriously hope that was a joke.
Yes and no.
Educate yourself always.
Yeah, and let me read the caption. For centuries, black people have largely been denied access to the full economic benefits of higher education. Even race-neutral programs such as the GI Bill systematically excluded African Americans and left them with few opportunities. Today, black people remain less likely to attend and graduate from college. When they do attend, they are more likely to take on costlier student loan debt. This debt makes it difficult to purchase a home, save for retirement, and otherwise build wealth. More than 50 years after the prohibition of redlining, blockbusting, and other discriminatory housing practices, Black Americans remain 9 times more likely than white Americans to experience discrimination when they try when they're when trying to rent or buy a home. With additional resources and expanded authority, agencies charged with addressing racial bias in the housing system can bolster Black home ownership and increase access to affordable rental housing, both of which are key vehicles for building wealth. For decades, predatory lending and other discriminatory financial practices have disproportionately stripped wealth from Black households. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is charged with protecting consumers from discrimination in the financial marketplace, expanding the CFPB's resources, capacity, and authority would reduce racial disparities in interest rates for financial instruments. Centuries of employment discrimination and occupational segregation have forced Black people into jobs with lower wages and fewer retirement benefits. Today, only 1 in 3 working age Black households have a retirement savings account, compared with 2/3 of white households. A national savings plan would expand access to retirement savings for workers who may not have employer-sponsored plans. I assume that must be an IRA. Familial wealth gap. Familial wealth helps young people finance their education, purchase homes, and begin saving for retirement. However, wealth is unequally distributed by race. By ages 25 to 34, white Americans already have on average 11 times more wealth than their black counterparts. A baby bonds program would give all Americans a head start by providing them with seed capital at age 18. So clicking on consumer protection and baby bonds, you start to see the black wealth double from what we originally looked at in the beginning. So all of the policy interventions project that black wealth increases as more policy interventions are implemented. This is a really long article, and there's no way that we'll be able to get through it tonight. That's probably something we'll have to come back to another time. Anybody have any opinions on it so far?
We're broke.
I think it's pretty interesting, though.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that white wealth somehow needs any of these policy interventions as if they were hurting to begin with. It doesn't seem to move for white wealth if you click consumer protection, but it definitely increases black wealth, right? So the policies actually work. At least in simulation, it works. Then you go to, and the same thing goes for fair housing, right? So fair housing, it increases black wealth from 317,000 to 396,000. And if you click both of them, it actually doubles it, or not doubles it, but it increases it significantly. And if you add
So
something
you
like
said basically, I'm sorry, you're making a point that the policy interventions help.
That's what the simulator is pointing out. That's
right, because
if
that's
the policy
making the point that this discrimination or racism that we speak of, and some people debate whether it's real. It's a real thing.
Right. And I'm just clicking on it for simulation purposes because to give a difference in
Oh yeah, I think this is powerful graphic display of it's real. There's systems in place designed to take advantage.
But the main driver that actually benefits black people the most seems to be without actually having unintended consequences of benefiting white wealth would be consumer protection and fair housing.
Yeah, I think the main benefits, or among the main benefits, is the fact that we don't get the return on our investment in education and in home ownership. I didn't say we don't get a return or that those things don't improve things for us, but we don't get the same return as white folk. Our neighborhoods don't appreciate to the same degree as white neighborhoods, and our college education doesn't propel us as far as it does them.
All right, this next one is from time.com. President Trump wants a weaker dollar, but he keeps accidentally pumping up the value. President Donald Trump's intensifying battle with China and other major trading partners is morphing into a global currency war. It will be hard for him to win both. Escalating trade tensions have supported the dollar this year. They are now fueling a mammoth bond rally as investors seek out the safest assets, demanding the greenback to buy treasuries. Foreign ownership of American government notes has swelled to record highs, pushing yields to the lowest since 2016 on 10-year notes, a benchmark for global borrowing. Trump has repeatedly nagged the Federal Reserve to cut borrowing costs while complaining that the dollar is too strong. Should the Fed cut interest rates again, the monetary easing may actually shore up the U.S. economy, supporting the greenback. That may only add to Trump's frustration. Options traders boosted wagers on a weaker yuan versus the dollar. Whether President Trump can win the trade war and the FX war seems rather doubtful, said Kit Jux, a global strategist at Societe Generale SA in London. If he wants a weaker dollar, then he should want a stronger yuan and euro. Unfortunately for him, this trade rhetoric has had the opposite effect. The dollar has strengthened about 2.3% against the euro and 2.4% versus onshore yuan this year, and is holding near its 2019 high on a trade weighted basis. Trump's latest threat of more tariffs on Chinese goods has helped push the yuan past a psychological threshold of 7, the level defended by the authorities in the past. The yuan steadied on Thursday after the central bank set the daily fixing stronger than analysts expected, providing some reassurance to traders rattled by a tumultuous week in the markets. Option traders this week paid more to bet on the yuan falling over the next 3 months, according to currency option prices. The question now is whether Beijing will allow that to happen and what the Republican president may do in response. In the eyes of some analysts, further yuan weakness could raise the risk of currency intervention by the U.S. to weaken the dollar. It hasn't taken that step since 2000, when it joined an international effort to support the euro. Intervention carried out for more than a few weeks could backfire and become supportive of the dollar, according to an analysis by UBS Group AG. For it to work, U.S. growth and carry advantages must both be blunted while the growth outlook in China and Europe improves. UBS said that's not a scenario economists expected. So Trump overplayed his hands in this trade war that's now a currency war, and they cannot weaken the dollar to keep pace with the yuan. And because of that, he finds himself in a very cold place. It's probably like a pickle in a jar. Any of you people have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think of course, everybody knows I'm the technical purist here. I'm not of the opinion that America can actually control the movement of the dollar to the degree that people think that they can. As these other currencies get weaker, money is going to flee to the dollar, pushing it higher.
Well, do you think this move was in response to what they're saying, China depressing their currency as well?
There's a political part to this. I mean, he has to posture as though he's, as though we are controlling it, or that things have that these movements of the currencies are under our political control. He has to posture it that way. I think it's disastrous for him to do so. You know, because when something happens that he can't control, he's going to get blamed for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, you know, that dog bites both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't go below the yuan right now. See, China could take all the punches that the U.S. throws at it. Mostly because it's fat. In terms of body mass, it's all fat, so it's absorbing all those punches. Whereas the U.S., China is basically giving you a death by 1,000 cuts, and the Trump administration is bleeding. It's bleeding big time, and it doesn't see the need to go get a tourniquet or some kind of first aid from fucking CVS or Walgreens. Put itself in such a bad position. They should never have gotten themselves into something like this. Now they can't get themselves out.
Right. No, he cannot. What say you, Paul, on the wisdom of the president? I guess positioning himself as having or taking a position on what, let's say, start with the Fed, what the Fed should do regarding interest rates and the dollar, or the whole thing of labeling China a currency manipulator as though we're not. What do you think about that? Anyone, and that's not just Paul. What does any others on the panel here think of China being labeled a currency manipulator as though we are not?
Every nation that has a powerful currency is a currency manipulator. So
there you go.
That includes England. That includes Germany. Even though they've moved from the Deutschmark to the euro, they're still the economic engine. That includes America with the dollar, Japan with the yen. So they're all now China with the yuan. They're all currency manipulators. How do you think arbitrage works? That's what it is. But with all that being said, so as I always say, this is all public theater. I take a very somewhat radical approach that I don't take anything that the president says for face value. I take the position that he is nothing more than a puppet like every other American president since LBJ. So this is not Trump's economic policy. This is the economic policy of those that be, people behind the scenes. That's my take. That's my opinion. Until I see something that I feel counters that, that's the way that I continue to think. So right now, I still take a wait and see attitude for the long term to see how all of this plays out. Because I also take, this is only my personal theory, again, just my ideas, that China has tied itself economically at the hip to create a powerful economy and stable currency like the US has. They felt that the fastest way to do so was to tie themselves at the hip to America and be a leech and suck up as much power and as much infrastructure and as much knowledge until the point where they can operate independently and on their own. At such time, they will either economically decouple themselves from America and then see how things go. Again, that's only my theory. Yes, I know it's radical, but I state clearly, these are my opinions and my ideas based on the things that I've seen over the years.
Well, I will say that Paul and I are like 99% in agreement. And that 1% is just me being completely biased by the charts, but the charts support the position that Paul and I are taking. Basically, we different methods of coming to the same kind of conclusion.
Well, I mean, but I don't even think that their plan really is to ditch the U.S. I think they have more of a soft approach to world dominance. and it's through technology, right? You see, so even if our own tech sector is looking to leverage a 5G infrastructure, I mean, if China doesn't have a hand in that, it's going to be very difficult for the U.S. to roll that out on its own. If you kick Huawei out, who's your hardware provider for much of your 5G infrastructure?
It would be somebody like Cisco or Motorola of America. So they could backfill that area, but the problem is that would involve those companies actually having a product ready to go, and I don't
Right.
I don't think they have anything immediately ready to go. They have something, but nothing immediate. Whereas Huawei had the product ready to go.
It's ready to go, right?
More than likely, Broadcom, Motorola, Texas Instruments, those companies said, keep them, keep those mother effers out of our country immediately. I don't think this has to do with politicians. This has to do with the tech sector saying, keep those bastards out.
Oh yeah.
At any cost.
Yeah.
See, you have to understand something from an economic standpoint. The most powerful, America is number one. Germany is number two, speaking from an economic standpoint. China, I don't even know if they're number three. Some would argue 3, 4, 5 even. But my theory is that when, again, I said would decouple themselves. So Europe is economically interdependent with the US. Everyone is interdependent with the other. We all do business together. So what I posit is that China wants to get to a point where they are on equal footing with the US and Germany. At that point, when I say decouple, so they will no longer be economically tied at the hip, but they will be interdependent on an equal footing economically, much in the same way that Germany is. Japan used to be, but no one wants to admit that Japan has economically been in a 20-year recession. More so, it's been so long now, we actually call it stagflation. Because it used to be America, Britain, Japan, and then Germany. Now it's America, Germany, maybe China, then Japan. So the point is, so I agree with what you said, Ulysses, just that I don't think that China has the idea that they want to just toss them to the side. Just that they basically bullied their way to the table. They said, listen,
no, I don't think
want to sit at the table right now.
Yeah, I don't think they want to just toss it to the side. I mean, hell, look, they're trying to fight all of these all these tariffs and shit, and the freezing out of their companies in our markets. That's what I mean. I think their position is soft power through technology, and the US is the one who's basically saying, no, the US is hands off to you.
All right, let me
I don't know if you guys look at it in my point of view, but what I see is that US and now the Europeans to some extent, what they do is they bring a technology to market and they keep it there as long as possible to squeeze as much money as they can out of it. While the Chinese are going about this in a different manner. The Chinese is say, you know what? We're going to make technology available as soon as we can.
Huawei just released their operating system to compete with Android.
They're working on it. So it's a joint venture project with Russia. They're working on it. I don't know if they've copied the source code from Android or if they have their own kernel.
They said this is their own kernel. They had been working on this behind the scenes, kind of betting on something like this going down.
Well, if I used to have a Huawei Mate 9 Pro, and that thing had its own customized Android kernel. It was radically different than anything Google had. So it was actually a really good phone. I would say it's probably one of my best phones I've had in the last couple of years, next to the BlackBerry. So, and with that being said, they have the capability to do so, but where are they going to get their apps from? Is the real question.
Well, from what they were saying is, so their app store. So in order to have the app, the app development compete with like Google Play and the Apple iTunes App Store, they wouldn't. I forgot what it is, but they're not going to charge developers. They're not going to charge them to actually place apps on the App Store. And I think I forgot what it is, what percentage they get of the app sales, but they're not going to charge developers. I think that was like their kind of like their opening salvo to get developers on board to start developing for their platform. Is that they're like, look, we're not going to charge you to come and do business with us, to sell your apps and make your apps available for our phone.
Right, because they're going to take all your intellectual property anyways. But
well,
but
there's that part.
If you're an app developer and you see China's got China is moving into market in Africa, Russia, India, and this is like 4.5 billion people, 4.5 to 6 billion people. What are you going to do? Keep yourself out of the market just because you can have a 300 million or 500 million market?
You're going to sell the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 15 for $3,000.
Well, the thing is, U.S. Social media companies can't do business with China either, based on the trade war. So
the trade war, the tariffs, yeah.
Right. So your top 3 apps, which is Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, won't be able to be installed on there. What do you do then? Because you don't have that base. That's a big problem for
but
China.
you're gonna have Chinese, Indian, Russian app developers that gonna jump in that market, and then when you get back in that market, what are you gonna do?
Which market?
The for Huawei or any other Chinese phone developer who's going to use the Huawei platform, you know that China is going to say, look, and China is going to probably go after Korea too to move on to the Huawei platform.
No, they won't. That won't happen. That won't happen.
You sure about that?
No, yeah, because Samsung's dominant over there in Korea. So Samsung has very good relations with Google, and that's not something they're going to break apart. Although
but
Samsung has their own operating system called Tizen.
Yeah.
And Tizen is supported by the Linux community very heavily. They have a new watch coming out this month that is based on that operating system that they custom built. So Samsung is the number 3 seller in its phone sales in comparison to Huawei and Apple. So Samsung already has their own ecosystem and market share from a technology from a customer standpoint, from a customer base standpoint. So if anything, they would be working more closely with Google to keep their platform up and get their and counter China. Not China, counter Huawei, and less worried about integrating themselves into the fabric of Huawei's custom operating system, because that's not their platform. They don't actually need it. China and Russia needs it because they've been locked out of that market now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because anything more than 2 is 3's company. And that doesn't really work in the tech industry like that. We see that happening right now with Windows, Mac OS, and then you have another third party operating system that can't keep up with the top 2. Even Apple can't keep up with Microsoft, right? Because the platform is just so well integrated into business sector. It's not really necessary to actually to compete in that area. So Apple has their own sector. Microsoft dominates the sector. It's just one of those things that South Korea doesn't really have all that much interest, from my understanding, of integrating into a custom OS built by China. China has to forge their own way, but that's going to require a lot of app developers, and I don't know if China really has the capacity to seek out competing platforms with Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. It's just really difficult to really capture that audience. They could probably do something in Africa, which is another high growth market, but that takes time. That's not something that happens overnight. Even Android came out in 2007, 2008, and it has taken them roughly a long time to get to the maturation that they're at right now. The original Android phones were horrific. They were crashing. The quality of the builds of the phones were terrible. They were like hockey pucks. The camera quality was like looking through the eyes of a potato or something like that. It was terrible. So it takes time. Although Huawei has a good hardware platform, the operating system is something that is going to be left to be seen, probably for another couple of years. Let me jump to this next article because I got a lot of other articles we have to cover. Bloomberg.com, China goes big on commodities purchase amid shifting trade war. Commodity purchase by China rebounded strongly in July. Imports of soy to coal and crude oil gained, signaling demand in the world's biggest buyer remains solid even as trade spat with the U.S. escalates. The increase comes as the nation's overall imports shrank less than forecast, while export growth rebounded, signaling some recovery in trade before new tariffs threatened by the U.S. The nation's total imports look surprising, with the strong commodity component driven by both rising prices and volumes, said Betty Wang, senior China economist at Australia and New Zealand Banking Group Limited in Hong Kong. Coal and crude oil volumes also held up, which could be seen as signs of rising energy demand, she said, adding that higher iron ore prices year on year also boosted the value of imports. Soybean shipments jumped in July to the highest level in almost a year as Chinese crushers boosted volume from South America and before halting U.S. purchases. Imports rose to 8.64 million tons last month from 6.51 million tons in June and 8 million a year ago. The strength may persist through August and September, which could raise inventories and slow future purchases. Coal imports surged to the highest 6 months as companies brace for tougher import controls in the second half. Shipments jumped 13% in July from a year ago to 32.89 million tons, handing authorities further impetus to clamp down as they seem to keep annual volumes at levels similar to last year's. I'm not seeing anything there for in terms of import of materials built for phones and computers and stuff like that. But this is very interesting. Will you have anything you want to add to
that? Good time to short it for me. Not financial advice, just entertainment information. You know.
Yep, if you're a commodities trader, you don't want to be holding your commodities till next month.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of the charts are saying the same thing with regard to those metals and energy and metals commodities. The dollar is under some pressure right now. That's the odd thing about it. We talk about the Chinese yuan weakness and the like, and the dollar has not really started settling. It has not really settled on the bottom to really get this rise going. That's what's really surprising to me, because it's like the world is looking at this chart and we all see what's going to happen, but it hasn't really started yet. The dollar's rise hasn't really started yet. It's still trying to find a bottom, but these other currencies are experiencing pressure just at the anticipation of the dollar rising.
All right, next one is from CNBC.com. Oil prices could crash by $30 if China buys Iranian crude. Bank of America. Crude oil prices could sink as much as $30 a barrel if China decides to buy Iranian crude oil in retaliation to the latest U.S. tariff measures, according to the Bank of America Merrill Lynch. While we retain our $60 a barrel Brent forecast for next year, we admit that a Chinese decision to reinitiate Iran crude purchases could send oil prices into a tailspin. A Bank of America Merrill Lynch Global Research report said Friday, warning that prices could sink by as much as $20 to $30 a barrel in that scenario. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce has threatened countermeasures after President Donald Trump threatened to slap a 10% tariff on $300 billion of Chinese goods. The decision Thursday floored oil markets and sent crude plunging 8%, the most in 4 years. Analysts warn that oil volatility is set to rise again as markets wait for a Chinese response to the latest U.S. tariffs threat, which could include purchasing Iranian oil. This decision would both undermine U.S. foreign policy and cushion the negative terms of trade effects on the Chinese economy of rising U.S. tariffs, the report added. Shipments of Iranian oil fell below 550,000 barrels per day in June from 875,000 barrels per day in May, and about 2.5 million barrels of oil per day in June of 2018, according to data from S&P Global Platts. Roughly half of Iran's exports were shipped to China in June and July, according to the firm. But a Chinese decision to purchase Iranian oil in a further defiance of U.S. sanctions could act as a double-edged sword, according to other analysts. Iran would welcome any opportunity to increase its oil production, whether or not it breaches the terms of U.S. sanctions. But the strategy there would introduce China to partner over which it doesn't have an enormous amount of control. Don't forget, there are other producers that would also be targeting that trade with China. So for instance, you could see Iraq or Saudi Arabia step in and try and discount the volumes that they would be exporting to China as a way to circumvent Iran getting that extra market share. Crude oil prices slumped further on Monday as traders focused on a deteriorating demand outlook. Analysts at Bank of America Merrill Lynch said the latest round of U.S. tariffs could reduce global oil demand by 250,000 to half a million barrels per day, adding to worries about a demand slowdown that is challenging the fundamentals for crude. My quick analysis on this is that China, if playing this right, could potentially become a gas station for Iranian crude oil. Now, how this would work is that they would buy the Iranian oil for cheap, take what they need, and the rest of it sell it off to other nation states for dirt cheap, because they have the excess. They wouldn't really need all of Iranian's oil because they're getting it at a fairly cheap price. So if they only utilize 1/3 of the shipment and sell the other 2/3, or utilize the 2/3 and sell the 1/3, they actually make a nice ROI on that, because other nation states are in dire need. If they need oil, and they can always ship 100,000 barrels or 200,000 barrels of that leftover oil to, let's say, Syria, who needs it desperately because their oil facilities are being occupied by U.S. Marines.
Well, you recall November of last year, China and Iran did a currency swap. They had a deal. And I'm going to post that link because I recall this being a part of that discussion when they made this happen late last year. So it's interesting now that this comes about, it was like, okay, that was a foretelling or a signaling when they agreed to they sealed the currency swap deal with Iran last year in November.
My only caveat would be what will be the response from the other OPEC members, because this is basically an effective end around OPEC. Because yes, you're buying it at fair market price, or at least that has been set by OPEC, but they're buying in such huge amounts, they're basically going to stockpile and then sell what they don't need to everyone else who would normally pay OPEC prices, but if they're going to buy it for less from China. So what would be the pushback from the OPEC nations?
China would have to become a member of OPEC, but now Russia has taken over OPEC for all intents and purposes. This happened a couple months ago.
How so? I must have missed that.
Let me pull up the article.
I was so caught up on the other side of the pond. I must have missed that one.
Yeah. Paul, you remember when King Fahd went to Russia?
Yep.
Yeah, you don't remember that time?
That would be so. Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's when the Saudis threw up their hands and said we surrendered, man. Because what they were trying to do with Russia didn't work. They in the U.S. had tried to squeeze Russia.
And then the U.S. tried to squeeze Saudi Arabia with shale oil. Excavations, or exploration. Sorry. So Russia and Saudi Arabia agreed to extend deal with OPEC curb oil output. So this basically puts Moscow in charge of OPEC.
Very, very interesting. I definitely missed this one. This is wow. This is game over.
And when that pipeline come online into Europe, guess what? Russia's going to be even a bigger player.
Yep. This is game over because damn, why does the name of the company RAO Gazprom is still in play? And unless things have changed, and I have not investigated for a long time, they're still sitting on the largest reserves of natural gas, unless things have changed. So when you combine that fact with this is game over.
Yeah, I've said this before in another hangout, but can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Moscow controls the Middle East now. It's not Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but it's Moscow. Moscow is in full control militarily and social economically speaking. They are in full control. Look at a map. If you look at a map, you will see that they cover everything from Algeria to Libya, all the way back into the Central Asian states.
Which is interesting because Europe has no natural energy resources. They are totally dependent upon the OPEC nations for their oil. That's why the U.S. fought those 2 Gulf Wars. It wasn't for our oil.
Right.
It was for their oil. But our economy is interdependent with Europe's economy. So to keep their economy going, which in turn keeps our economy going, we had to fight for their oil. Mm-hmm. So this is interesting because I don't remember, I talked to that Germany has closed all of their coal mines except for one, and they've made it at a state level. a push to move to completely renewable sources of energy for the nation. However, Germany still receives a large amount of their energy and their coal imports specifically from Russia. So that only further goes to highlight how much that Russia is basically controlling the one thing that Japan got into World War II over: energy resources.
Right, right. And Japan gets their oil from Saudi Arabia. So I mean that was the whole purpose of blowing up that oil tanker and blaming it on Iran, so that
Mhm.
they wouldn't buy any energy from Iran, because the Japanese energy minister actually went to Iran to work out a deal. And that same day, their Japanese oil tanker mysteriously blew up. They accuse Iran of targeting a Japanese oil tanker while a Japanese minister is inside their country that same day. It doesn't make any sense.
The USS Pueblo all over again.
Hmm.
But you know what? One last
Hmm.
monkey wrench. As I detailed in detail months ago, no one knows the long-term reserves of Saudi Arabian oil, because Aramco is a privately owned joint venture between the U.S. and the Crown.
Hmm.
So the point is, at some point, the oil is going to run out. Whether it's 20 years or 50 more years, it's going to run out. That's why MBS has been making such a push to move to develop the kingdom for tech.
Hmm.
So he's basically trying to milk as much as he can now, because the day it comes out that they cannot maintain production because the reserves are getting low, the world will change.
They'll have to start selling sand. let, me, let me get to the next article.
Man, I have a beach. I need sand.
Yeah, son of a beach, man, son of a beach. This one is from BusinessInsider.com. China just all but abandoned hopes for a trade deal with the U.S. Economist says. China's move to allow its currency to fall to a 2008 low against dollar indicates that the trade war may get a lot worse. China's central bank on Monday morning allowed the currency to drift below 7 yuan per dollar, its lowest value since the 2008 financial crash. The People's Bank of China had previously erred on keeping the yuan above the threshold with the hope of a deal, says Julian Evans Pritchard, a senior China economist at Capital Economics. The PBOC has effectively weaponized the exchange rate, even if it is not proactively weakening the currency with direct FX intervention. He wrote in a note to clients on Monday. They were holding back in order to avoid derailing trade negotiations with the U.S., he said. The fact that they have now stopped defending 7 against the dollar suggests that they have all but abandoned hopes for a trade deal with the U.S. Global stocks crashed on news, with the Hang Seng closing down 2.8% and U.S. stocks down at least 1.9% on Monday morning. Given that their goal is presumably to offset more of the impact from additional U.S. tariffs, they are likely to allow the currency to weak further, probably by 5 to 10% over the coming quarters, he wrote. We had anticipated that the PBOC would eventually devalue the currency in response to trade tensions, but hadn't expected to come quite this soon. Although the PBOC officials have repeatedly argued that this level is arbitrary, they had previously intervened to prevent the currency from breaching this threshold. No doubt, mindful of the headlines it would attract, he added. The People's Bank of China linked the currency fall to increased tariffs, though it did not explicitly mention the U.S. They said we didn't anticipate this, expect this to come quite this soon. Fooled you. You have been fooled.
Yeah, stay tuned. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this dollar, this this dollar rise is real. It's like people don't want to consider it because it would be disastrous.
Hey, let me just say something real quick, man. I was talking to my mentor over the weekend, last weekend, and I found out that a guy that had a shop similar to the shop that we used to run, he recently shut down his business. And the reason that he cited literally was because of the tariffs. Like, this is how real it's getting. Like, I told you, Noah and I, we felt the heat on one of our companies, and this dude literally just shut his stuff down like a couple weeks ago, saying like, look, man, you know, these price increases are killing me. I ain't selling nothing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're seeing this all over the country. I mean, MOT has come on here last week and talked about, or 2 weeks ago, talked about the impact to the trucking industry. It's not viable. Everybody's hurting from this. I don't know. I mean, we're not even talking about a looming recession over our heads. This is separate from that. You compound that with a would-be blip in the market. That could have some serious consequences. China is willing to sacrifice their people by the millions. How much is the U.S. willing to sacrifice on this?
Exactly.
Look, they're not willing to sacrifice much, because I'm telling you right now, this little $60 billion stimulus package that went to the farmers, okay, they ain't feeling the shit. Because, you know, I was watching this one clip on RT. It was this guy. He was head of the global farming initiative for the state of Iowa, right? And, you know, he was talking about how, like, he's like, you know, the thing about it is that when you build these type of international relationships, he's all, you know, you have to build trust first before you then build the business relationship. He goes, but once you wreck the trust, he goes, you know, it's hard to do that, get that back. You know, it takes, he was saying in his estimation, it would take decades to try and get Chinese business back here. So he's looking at it as a loss being a loss. You know, so the $60 billion, the farmers, a lot of them, they're just kind of looking at it like, dude, this is just another handout for us. We don't have no business. You know, and so what's happening here is that it's making it good for big agribusiness, because the smaller guys are like, look, I don't know, I don't really see much reason why I should continue to do this. And big agri comes in, buys them out.
One of the things that I expect to happen, and nobody's talking about it yet because it probably hasn't reached the level, but the Chinese are going to go to South America and to some extent to Russia, India, wherever they can to get what they used to buy from the US. And then they're going to send their people to Africa with pocket full of money to build farms. I mean, use farms to grow their soybean, corn, whatever they have to import, and send it back to China. That's what I'm thinking right now. Because the only place that has the amount of land that can viably support what China wants outside the US is Africa. Europe can't do it.
You know, I'm so tempted to say something with regards to that, but I'll save it for another discussion.
But also look at South America. You see what Brazil is doing? The guy who came in power in Brazil, Bolsonaro, is saying, you know what? Clear as much as the forest as you want, plant soybeans, plant corn, grow whatever you want to grow in Brazil, because they know they got a market for it because what's happening, what the US is doing.
The investment in Africa is infrastructure. All right. So again, I've been there, I've seen it with my own eyes. That is the investment, infrastructure. There is so much land. You can literally build a small mock-up scale of a city, literally square miles, infrastructure, below ground, above ground, buildings, low level high rises, an actual mock city, and just test new tech. You know, Mike and Ulysses talk about wireless charging technology for highways. They can literally build the mock cities and the highways to R&D this tech. So just like DE said, they can go over there and just build farms. So the irrigation and drainage problems, which I beat like a dead horse over and over and over again, if anyone were to make the investment, they can go over there, build these things, and test these technologies. So at the end of the day, despite what I hear, it's money and it's investment. So when money is coming in, who's offering the best deals? So that's as far as I will go down that rabbit hole this evening.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was talking, but I had my mic muted. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got 50 plus people watching and only 43 likes. Please hit the like button if you're not going to participate in the chat. All right, this one is from Bloomberg.com. China retaliation is 11 on a scale of 1 to 10, Wall Street warns. Analysts continue to warn about the dangers of an escalating trade war on Monday as China moved to strike back at the U.S., hitting U.S. stocks and boosting treasuries. Semiconductors with direct exposure to trade and bank stocks, which are sensitive to interest rates, were among the decliners. The biggest U.S. banks slid, with the KBW Bank Index dropping as much as 4.1% to the lowest since June 4th. Bank of America Corp led index decliners with a drop of 5.5%, the most since December 4th, while Citigroup Incorporated shed more than 4% of JP Morgan Chase and Company slipped 3.8%. Micron Technology Incorporated fell 6.2%, while Texas Instruments Incorporated lost 4.4%, and Intel Corp was down 4%. Apple Inc. dropped 5.6%, the most since May 13th. Shares in Chinese tech giants Alibaba Group Holding and JD.com Incorporated fell near 2-month lows in U.S. trading. Agriculture equipment makers Deere and Company and Agco tumbled as China suspended imports of U.S. agricultural products. The escalating trade tensions are also a major risk for U.S. automotive industry, which has a significant exposure to the country, according to the UBS Global Wealth Management Chief Investment Officer Mark Heifel. The latest spat raises the possibility that tariffs could also be placed on auto imports. President Donald Trump tweeted about China and the Fed on Monday morning, saying China dropped the price of their currency to an almost a historic low. It's called currency manipulation. Are you listening, Federal Reserve? This is a major violation which will greatly weaken China over time. Kruger called China's retaliation massive, adding that on a 1 to 10 scale, it's an 11. He cited the Chinese government calling on state buyers to halt U.S. agricultural purchases, while there's increased anecdotal evidence that the Chinese government is tightening its overview of foreign arms or foreign firms. While there were measures that could have been chosen with larger direct effects on supply chains, the announcements from Beijing represent a direct shot in the White House and seem designed for maximum political impact, Kruger said. We expect a quick response from the White House and consequently expect a more rapid escalation of trade tensions. There now will be increased expectations that the Fed will cut again in September to offset the drag caused by the escalation in the trade war. He added, such moves will only be a partial lag offset to the recessionary headwinds a cycle of retaliation would cause. In the midday note, Kruger added that the next stop of the currency manipulation road is probably off the map. Kruger expects Trump's drumbeat on currency will get louder, with the potential for the president to use a charge of currency manipulation to justify some combination of tariffs, investment restrictions, and export controls. This is the next step after this is somebody's gonna have to throw a punch. Somebody's gonna get hurt out here. Somebody's gonna pull up on somebody in the warship.
I'm saying, man.
It's only a matter of time for somebody someone get their jaw broke out here.
We get real close to that. We get real close. Like, damn what the media is giving you. Yeah, we do productive talks with China. Yes, Xi Jinping. Yes, we're looking to move forward, and bullshit. Meanwhile, September 1st, another round of tariffs goes up.
Right.
Prices go up September 1st, another 10%.
The thing with that is, right, is that on Wall Street, September is going to be the next triple witching. So on that day, market volatility goes through the roof anyway. So what if there's another round of these hikes that coincides with Wall Street triple witching day?
Okay,
So
Paul, explain that hell. Explain the triple witching hell.
Triple witching day is when stock options, index options, and index futures all expire on the same day. So to cover positions, people have to cover their positions, whether that's buying or selling. So market volatility goes through the roof. Volume goes through the roof. The indexes typically either go up or down much more than they normally do. But it's accepted that volume and this volatility, whether it be up or down, is a direct cause because it's triple witching. The point is, there's so much happening on that day and so much money trading hands and there's so much volatility. If you add in the potential of these hacks, and hike further retaliation from China to coincide with a triple witching day, bro, there could be a bloodbath in September, which is going to be the next triple witching day.
You better be right. If you're investing or you have money in a position on that day, you better be on the right side, on the correct side of that volatility.
And understand something, because it's triple witching day. People have to cover their positions. Like if anyone remembers the movie Trading Places, and at the end of their day, they did what they did, and the director of the commodities exchange said, "Gentlemen, margin call. You have to cover your positions to meet your margin call." So people have to buy or sell to meet their positions, to cover their positions, to cover their obligations. So there's going to be buying and selling. There's going to be tremendous amounts of volume. The thing is, people also tend to try to time the market and ride things that are going out. Those are typically amongst the four most busiest trading days, and especially the volatility on those days. The next one is coming in September. So when I hear this, that's putting up my red flags. Could we see another action from China time to coincide with next month's triple witching day?
I think they'll ease back from the table.
Mike V, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, brother.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think that China will pull back from the table until they watch US's next move. Because if what the next punch that they're going to throw is going to be a TKO to the US. and that will provoke a physical confrontation. They're not going to sit there and just take that. You'll probably see
You
Chinese
mean like warfare, like
yeah.
a physical warfare, like a
Yes.
World War III, possibly?
Not World War III, but it will definitely be, those fishing vessels. They'll send the Coast Guard out there, U.S. Coast Guard, to start, searching those vessels, just to harass them, just to cause some controversy. They're doing that now as we speak.
They've been doing that, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing that now as we speak. So you may, in the U.S. has vast amount of Coast Guard vessels in that area. So they may, you may see them search. They've been practicing. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. So they have the ability to close off their shipping lanes. U.S. Navy has that ability to close off their shipping lanes. What will China do then? Is China going to take that line down, or are they going to go to United Nations Security Council, or what are they going to do?
That could potentially bring us to a modern day Cuban Missile Crisis blockade,
or it could bring you to Pearl Harbor. The last time the U.S. cut off any sort of logistics and oil pipeline for a country was Japan in the Pacific, and we saw what happened with that.
Yep, history changed the world.
Well, when the Pearl Harbor happened, was it during the same time they dropped their nuke Japan, or was it after? I don't know if
no, that predated by a few years.
That's what ended the war.
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor is what got the U.S. into the war. What you're talking about happened 4 years afterwards to end the war.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
It's gonna get nasty. I'm telling you right now.
China is playing the non-kinetic game. U.S. can only play that game for so long. China is willing to go on a hunger strike for the next couple of fiscals, for the next fiscal at least. And the U.S. can't do that because it's so politically driven. If you have farmers and people losing jobs and businesses closing, like Complex Design just mentioned, MOT has talked about trucking, people in trucking, going out of business. How long can you hold out for?
Which is
you could. I would say they could hold out for 6 months.
Chaos. Let Paul Bryant talk, and you can go after him.
Which is the question that I brought up last week when you and I and BGS and Goen were talking. If this comes to a war of attrition before bullets start flying,
mm-hmm.
how much attrition can either country withstand? Who can last longer? So
China will last longer.
I don't know.
We don't know that. We don't know that. China hasn't been in a conflict.
Can't say that.
You sure about that?
Listen, just because they have a lot of people, that does not. We don't know. That's all I'm saying. We don't know. I would not jump to say that. China's gonna. We don't know that.
China hasn't been in a chaos. China hasn't been in a war since 1979 with another country. They went into Vietnam. They went into Vietnam and got their asses handed to them pretty badly. It's actually pretty embarrassing on behest of who was Secretary of State at the time under Carter, Brzezinski.
Can I ask you a question? A real serious question.
Just let me finish the statement real quick. The last time China really got into a military conflict, as of recent time, was in Africa. I believe that was either in I believe it was either Somalia or I think it was Somalia that they got into a conflict in. And they even in that conflict, with the rebels, they got their asses handed to them pretty good. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn out for China.
All right. Can I ask your brothers this? I'm not sure how many's on the panel right now. Who in there has been in the military?
DE Raptor has been in the military.
Okay. What do we know what China has right now? What we know right now? Besides the trade war, what do they have like innovated right now that they have not revealed yet? That we know.
Are you talking about military hardware or economic?
Anything right now? Anything right now? Because you know they're kind of up in like, because here we don't got 5G yet, but over in China they got some things that's advanced right now than up here.
Well, we have 5G. We have 5G in
we have 5G, but they have some advanced stuff over there in Asia.
Oh no, this is well noted. I mean, we discuss it all the time.
Yeah. So in regards to actual physical conflict, because they got their butts handed, we're not sure what China has right now. Really, if let's say physical conflict has to come into play.
If that's going to be your talking point, with all due respect, the U.S. military has hardware that they don't talk about, that they out and out lie, that you have no idea. I have seen with my own eyes U.S. military hardware that looks like it's straight out of Star Trek. That's as far as I'll go down that rabbit hole. I don't believe anything that the government or the DOD says. So we don't know that. All I'm saying is I would not rush to say how either country is going to fare, whether it's an economic war or an actual shooting war. We don't know.
Okay.
All I'm saying, we do not know.
Okay. So what if it, Mike, before you talk, okay, so we don't know what really both sides have in this post right now because this war right now, trade war, right? And
yeah, we do know what they have. We know what.
Okay, all right.
We do know. We do know because if you look at what China is not using a physical war.
Yeah.
China is going in the
physical is the last of everything. That's why it's
well, what I'm saying, China is not shooting, right? The US is shooting. And I'm not kidding, the US is shooting. You gotta figure out what they did in Iraq, what they did in Syria. The US is shooting. Right. The US is shooting. The Chinese are not shooting. You understand? So the US might have a capability that China don't have militarily. But the US military is saying, do not attack China militarily. Otherwise, we would have attacked China already. The military, our military is keeping the US out of a shooting war with Russia.
There's been plenty instances where the U.S. military maneuvers suggest that we've tried to provocate conflict, and the Chinese were like, "You're not going to bait us in."
Right, exactly. China is not playing the military game. China is playing the economic game, but the economic game can also have as many casualties, if not more, than the shooting war.
You're seeing that now with suicides from farmers and opioid addictions. Yeah,
in the Midwest, exactly.
We just covered an article the other day where Trump said, we need to stop China from sending their drugs over here because it's killing our people, killing white men. That's really what they're referring to. And they don't have enough. They don't have enough leverage. Yeah, that's what Trump was saying. That's what Trump was saying.
Yeah, man. But it was safe in you. Well, was it America back, or was it Europe back in 1800s? Did the same for the Chinese with the opioid?
Oh, that was something else. That was heroin and opium.
Yeah, they were running heroin.
But
yeah, I mean, a form of drug like heroin. I know opium and heroin. I'm not just saying different things. I'm not sure, but
no, that's opioid.
Over almost 2 centuries ago. Right. Not using the same thing to do with.
But that's part of the economic war. It's not a shooting war. That's part of the economic war. And China has got a war chest when it comes to economic war, and they're using it. They're using it, and they're not using it. They don't use every time the U.S. Puts a shot across China's bow. China doesn't respond in the same way. You understand? China doesn't respond tit for tat at the same level. Then if the U.S. put on 300 million tariffs on 300 million at 25%. The Chinese might say, you know what, we're going to put on 150 million at 15%.
Mm-hmm.
But they choose which specific entity to attack. Like if they would say, we're not going to buy soybeans from you, we buy it from Brazil. You know how much soybeans get grown in the U.S. just to ship to China?
Yeah.
They might not buy pork from U.S. and they will say, you know, we're not going to buy pork from you, and we're not going to buy pork from Canada, which is your buddy.
Yeah.
And now Canada got to be scrambling. You know, Canada.
Yeah, I mean, somebody
is calling the U.S. going to call Donald Trump saying, "What the hell are you doing? This is how affecting us."
Right, and that's what they're saying right now. You know, what are we supposed to do with all this Canadian bacon?
Look, there's video of Trudeau at like UN meetings, council meetings and shit, right?
And the Chinese don't talk to him.
They don't, dude. Not only does the Chinese not talk to him, like literally nobody talks to him. He's like sitting over here trying to shake hands with people, and they're just like turning their backs to him and shit. And it's just like there's footage of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he's too busy playing Bubble Break on his iPhone, you know, to pass the time. Candy Crush and whatnot. He has no friends. You know, this is his last hurrah. You know, the kidnap, because you have to remember, Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada, and his country is responsible for taking the princess of Huawei.
Is she still there right now?
No, she's been extradited. She's been extradited to the U.S.
Extradited now? Okay.
Yeah, she's been extradited, but she's on house arrest or something to that effect. But you're talking. They're not going to talk to you at all. This is over for you. You should have never had capitulated to U.S. demands of arresting this princess. Literally, the daughter of the head of a very powerful company, and of Chinese state government. You're playing with fire now. That's the equivalent of going in there into Saudi Arabia and snatching MBS and bringing him to fucking Iran. That's fucking suicide.
Yeah, this war, this I would call it a war, because I mean, if we're going back and look, slapping tariffs on each other is an act of war, right? Under UN act of war under the UN Charter. Okay, slapping tariffs on another country is an act of war. So please believe that we are in a war. It's not a one being fought by the military.
It's a Cold War.
It's a Cold War.
Yeah.
It's a Cold War. And you are seeing many, oh damn, I'm trying to think of the word now. Crap. Anyway,
casualties?
You're seeing proxy. There you go. You are seeing both sides using proxy states. But they're clearly fighting a Cold War.
If you need any evidence of that, all you have to look at is how China strategically hit every goddamn state that voted red in the last election. They targeted, that shit.
That's exactly what they did, and they knew exactly what they were doing politically.
Exactly.
And the thing about Trump, he was too stupid to take a look at this guy is actually they're actually aiming at the states that he's going to be counting on for this next election. The Chinese are very, very strategic in what they're doing. It's not within their interest to get involved in a shooting war right now. They're not trying to get involved in that. Economic warfare is just as effective in so many ways as a shooting war. That's a big prelude to it. But if you don't have to shoot, then don't. But basically use your economic power to definitely weaken your opponent. That's exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it in the red state. That's a great point that you bring up, Complex, because me and my brother, we were going over this. We were talking about this the other day, just kind of laughing at how we were looking at how strategically the Chinese are just picking us off in some key states, and it seems like people are just not seeing this. But that's exactly what they're doing, and I think it's a pretty. I don't like what's happening to us, but for them, it's a pretty smart strategy.
What's that book you always mention?
I think it's going to be effective. Go ahead.
What's that book you always mentioned? Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu basically says, the name of the game, the object in the game is not to have to go to war if you don't fight. You want to defeat an enemy already defeated. So if you can defeat him without using troops, that's the ultimate acme of war. And that's where these guys are coming from. It's a very old book, 2,500 years old at least. At least 500 years older than the Bible. So those guys, they've been at this a long time, and they're using old time strategies on us. And you have people like the Orange one, like Orange head up in office and all that, and
Tangerine tyrant,
and the people, and the people around him who are stupid, not three-dimensional in thinking, and they're going to make certain types of errors because you have a bunch of arrogant, stupid, short-sighted people who really don't understand what's really going on. And I have some big questions about whether these guys really even understand the economic system that they're dealing with. I actually have some questions about that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, let me get to this last
They
article.
don't understand economics, bro.
Let me get to this last article, and then we can open it up. All right, this one is from CNN.com. China has $1 trillion trade war weapon. Will it ever use it? In the U.S., what the hell just happened? What is this? In the U.S.-China trade war, it's been a week of rapid escalation. Beijing devalued the yuan after the Trump administration threatened to slap tariffs on just about every Chinese export. The United States then labeled China a currency manipulator, deepening the rift. The exchanges have rocked global markets and threatened the global economy. What happens next is anyone's guess. China has said it is prepared to fight if necessary, and it has one hugely powerful weapon up its sleeve: the American government's biggest creditor. In theory, Beijing could trigger a panic in bond markets by dumping some of the $1.1 trillion in U.S. Treasury that it owns. By releasing a flood of U.S. Treasuries, the price would collapse, sending yields or interest rates soaring and causing American borrowers' costs to rocket. But there are very good reasons why China is unlikely ever to pull the trigger. First, it may not have the desired effect. Second, it could backfire badly on its own economy. It's likely not the most effective tool available, said Brad Setzer, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and former U.S. Treasury economist. China has taken steps in recent days to prop up the yuan, signaling that the depreciation was intended as a warning sign, but President Donald Trump could still hit back, even as the administration sticks to its plan for more trade talks in September. It's a combustible situation that's ripe for a further escalation. That's where concern about China's holdings of U.S. bonds comes in. If China really wants to rattle the United States, the thinking goes it could trash the value of U.S. Treasuries by pushing them into the market. That would cause yields to spike. And since Treasury yields are serve as a benchmark for business and consumer credit, the price of corporate debt, mortgages, and auto loans would then rise, putting the brakes on the U.S. economic growth. The dollar could also suffer as alarm spreads. In reality, such a move carries big risks and doesn't align with China's current strategy. According to Michael Harrison, the China practice head at consultancy Eurasia Group, he previously served as U.S. Treasury's chief representative in Beijing. We are clearly in an escalatory cycle, Harrison said. But I think Beijing's primary motivation right now in the trade war is to be able to withstand pressure from Trump. You can think of it as resilience comes first. In that respect, ditching the U.S. Treasuries could be counterproductive. If Beijing kicks off a fire sale for U.S. bonds, it would gut the value of its remaining holdings. It needs that stash to defend its currency. Experts think China will try to engineer a controlled fall in the yuan in coming months, allowing it to soak up some of the pressure on the economy without sparking an exodus of capital from the country, capital flight. Another deterrent, a sell-off of U.S. Treasuries would undermine China's push to attract foreign investment to its equity in bond markets. It needs that foreign inflow to cushion its currency during the trade war. Person said, if China weaponizes Treasury holdings, that sends a very alarming message to global investors. So China has a weapon of mass destruction waiting to use.
We were just saying this, man. Their method of attack is that of the economic variety.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there was one quote that was interesting where a dude said, "This is that $1 trillion gambit that they've got." He said that's not even actually the most effective tool that they've got. So that's something that's floated out there as a theoretical, but there's things that are far more effective that they could do that wouldn't even require, you know, something that we would perceive as the nuclear option. Like, they don't even have to do that. They could literally start with pinpoint precision, start targeting more industries, right? that largely support Trump and, you know, and his economic policies. They'll target them just the way they target the Midwest. They targeted the Midwest.
You know what? That is an excellent point. And you know what? I would really love to speak directly to that. Back in 2005, China went to U.S. steel companies, and they said, "Listen, we're falling behind on the Three Gorges Dam, and we're building the entire country. We need steel." So the U.S. steel company said, "Well, all right, fine. We don't have enough. You know, we're building America. We supply the steel." The Chinese said, "No, listen, you don't understand. We'll overpay for the steel." So the mills would say, "Well, listen, it's for argument's sake, it's 25 cents per raw ton." The Chinese said, we'll pay you $5 per raw ton. They said, "Well, no, it's now it's like $10 per ton." They said, "Fine, we'll pay you $10 per ton." There was a steel shortage in the United States of America. When I was building the Freedom Tower, the bulk of that steel came from Canada. The U.S. steel mills could not supply the steel because it was going to China. So from 2005 all the way to 2012, when we topped out the Freedom Tower, steel prices in America skyrocketed, and it hurt, and it had a ripple effect amongst obviously commercial construction, but any other industries in America that needed steel. The same for lumber. So the Chinese have the ability to target specific markets and areas of the economy that can also have follow-on effects. So this thing is massive.
You know, Paul, it's funny you say that, man, because during the time that the new Apple Park campus was built up in Cupertino, that big spaceship looking building. Okay. Yes. I was recruiting for the company that provided the steel for that. Okay. So
you know exactly what
I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, and the number one, the thing that was on the minds of the guys that were running this company, I don't want to mention their name, but let's just put it this way, they're based in Brazil. Right. So they operated in South America and North America.
I know obviously I know the company.
You know okay. Well, we don't have to say their name, but that was their whole thing, man, was that Chinese steel, putting everybody out of business. Look, it's the reason why Trump ran on the promise of get the steel mills back up and going, especially like over in the Rust Belt, like over in like Ohio, in places like that. And I want to say that there was a subsidy, $500 million subsidy that was put aside to get the steel mills up and going. and they put it towards it, and the production numbers are low. They're running at minimum capacity, and they still can't compete on the open market.
Bro, think about this. At the World Trade Center, the Freedom Tower, Tower 2, Tower 3, Tower 4, and the Transit Hub. The bulk of the steel, because I worked on every single one, the bulk of the steel came through. The tags normally say Bethlehem Steel or
Yep.
U.S. Steel.
Yep.
Most of those tags, the steel, the bulk of it came from Canada. And some of it, here's the thing, came from Chinese steel mills. Think about that. So the raw steel was coming from the U.S., shipped over to China, and then shipped into I-beams and columns and everything else that we used to build the Freedom Tower and all of the structures at the World Trade Center. Caterpillar built a factory on location because the Three Gorges Dam was so large that they were building excavation and construction machinery on site rather than shipping it over there. The Chinese literally cornered the global steel market for years.
Now, so you know where Triple A Auto Club Speedway, where they run the NASCAR, it's where I go. I do karting over there too. It's the big NASCAR track in like Fontana, California.
I've heard of it.
Okay. So that used to be a steel mill where that racetrack is. And
really?
So the story behind it is that Kaiser, the health insurance Kaiser Permanente.
Yes.
Okay, it was born. So there's a dude, I can't remember his first name, but last name was Kaiser. That was called the Kaiser Steel Mill. And what he did was he created a health insurance company to basically provide health insurance for his own and for all his steel workers. That's how you get Kaiser Permanente today.
Gotcha.
It became its own business. Okay. But when I was in high school, dude, like right after I graduated, the Chinese bought that steel mill. And over the course of like 3 years, they literally tore the whole entire mill down for the most part. There's still like some storage spaces, right, where they store like drums of like rolled steel because there's railroad tracks where they can load them on and move them and stuff. So they 3 years, they tore the whole entire steel mill down and they shipped it back to China.
Bro, I will tell you this. The U.S. steel industry is a shadow of its former self.
Yeah.
I don't see it ever coming back. Bethlehem Steel and U.S. Steel, they are shadows of their former self.
You familiar with Gerdau Ameristeel?
Yes.
That's who I work for.
So there you go. Bro, I listen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that is an industry, one, that was already destroyed, which is a whole story that I specifically know the specifics about with the U.S. Steelworkers Union and the black guys and the white guys, but we won't even touch that rabbit hole right now. But China, listen, I have seen firsthand the effect that China has on a sector that hit commercial construction across this country and globally. And it definitely had follow-on effects for other areas of the U.S. economy. So China has weapons that they can employ that will absolutely adverse. Yes, sir.
Are you aware of Bing Steel as well?
Bing Steel?
Bing. Dave Bing, who was a basketball player, NBA.
I don't think he's big enough to supply commercial steel. Name does not ring a bell.
Bing. Okay, you're not aware. Okay.
How do you spell it?
B-I-N-G.
Oh,
doesn't
Bing.
ring a
Bing. Like Microsoft Bing.
Dave Bing.
Does not ring a bell.
Dave Bing for former African American brother.
Dave. He played ball.
Yeah.
Oh, he owns his own steel company now. Nice.
Yeah, he owns his own steel. Yeah,
he went
Bing
to
Steel. I didn't know if
high school DC.
No, I don't think he's big enough to supply commercial steel because I've never heard of that company before.
I don't know, Paul. He's been out there in the steel industry for maybe 30 years.
But there's a certain volume. There's a certain volume that needs to be met in order to meet that sort of grade for commercial versus
right. So residential or like warehouses are one thing, but now if we're
But he was in the
large,
commercial steel. He was in the commercial steel industry, so I was
well,
interested too.
okay, I've just never heard of him. I've never seen any of his steel for New York City commercial construction. But if he's doing his thing, God bless.
Yeah, he's lived on the Black Enterprise Top 100 for a long time.
Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
true, Dollar Will. That's a fact. Dollar Will's right. That's exactly where he kind of resides, if you will.
Very nice.
Over $100 million company. I know that, but I don't know where he is now. I haven't followed him in a while. So anyway, all right.
Yeah. We'll go another 5 minutes, man. Just any kind of considerations of what
Yeah.
what can come from all this, how this is going to impact everybody here locally. I mean, we talked about trucking being destroyed by this. Complex has talked about his anecdotals of people he's spoken to, closing up business. We know that the ports in LA, the two ports that bring in shipments from China, have been all but backed up. Can't offload anything because of tariffs. Now they're talking about the auto industry hitting China. So well, not hitting China, but hitting US, selling their cars in China. The number one produced vehicle that the Chinese love so much is the Buick. For whatever reason, they seem to love a Buick.
No accounting for taste, clearly.
Why they love Buick so much is beyond Cadillac, more so than Cadillac. It's something I'll never figure out. They must love Mercury too, despite the fact that the brand is gone. It'd be interesting to see what happens. Here locally, we haven't really seen any slowdown. Mostly because we're a STEM state. We don't really rely on too much heavy industry all that much. Most of our heavy lifting has already been done with the big dig and other big mega projects like the Silicon District and whatnot. That's all been taken care of.
Mike, a buddy of mine told me that there are parts of it, or they're planning to do an extension to it. So it's really not over yet. Still,
what is that?
The Big Dig project. I thought it was finally done. Finally.
Yeah, it's done for the most part. It's 99% done. I mean, other than maybe cleaning up the rest of the materials, I don't see anything down there that needs to be done. What's happening in Boston, what's happening across the state, and mostly in Boston, is that they have to replace all the pipes in the streets because they're 100 years old. So that's a 20-year project by itself.
Same in New York. The to replace the infrastructure in New York City, it's been said that it is prohibitively expensive. They would literally have to tear everything up and replace everything. That's never going to happen. One of the last projects that I worked on was the new Second Avenue subway, first subway line in New York City in 100 years, and that was a massive project, and it took a lot of steel, and that was a major undertaking. And I also worked on the Hudson Yards project for a while, and that was a massive project. But they're saying that now it's these 100-story skinny skyscrapers. No one wants to take on public infrastructure projects because they're too large, too much steel, too much materials. The profit margins are thin because you follow on the after effects of the Chinese cornering the steel market for about 5 to 7 years. Is that steel prices are still high. They're not the sky high levels of, say, 2010 to 2011, but they're still high. So no one wants to take on massive infrastructure projects.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Paul, you were in the construction industry?
I still am. I'm not. I have the real estate business, but I still can work, and I should. And I am also a certified welder. as every union iron worker is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey, Dollar Will, can you post that Dave Bing Wikipedia to the
Sure.
YouTube chat?
Sure,
I
I'll
don't
do
think
Yeah.
that. I just want to say,
That'd be awesome.
unfortunately, he's followed Kwame Kilpatrick as mayor in Detroit for a period, and he has the distinction of leading. How does it go? It said during his term as mayor of Detroit, the city became the largest city in U.S. history to declare bankruptcy.
Wow.
So that's Mr. Dave Bing.
Bing.
But still, a distinguished business career from DC's Spingarn High School to a long MBA career to business and politics.
Mhm.
I also want to throw up a couple of a little drive by real fast with some charts, Mike. When I get it, if you get a second.
Go right ahead. Do you have the ability to share?
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm gonna let me. Go ahead and give me some time while I drop that link that you asked me about.
Yeah. So in terms of the big dig, the massive project. It's still water leaking inside the tunnels. I hate going through there personally. You never know what's gonna happen because if there was a water break in those tunnels, man, you're screwed. The one access that you have to get out closest to, man, you'll probably die trying to get through there.
Funny you say that because one of the products that I worked on when I was at the World Trade Center, the PATH train. When 9/11 happened, it was during rush hour, so there was a fully loaded PATH train that was caught in the tunnel. It flooded and everybody died. That never made the news. So we built some heavy steel doors. They're about a foot or 2 feet thick. That within 10 seconds they'll close the tunnel at either end. So potentially, I don't see any reason why that very same thing couldn't be done at other tunnels, such as the Big Dig. So people, in that scenario wouldn't drown to death.
Yeah. There's multiple escape hatches inside the inside the tunnel.
Mhm.
But the problem is that I personally think that the smoke inhalation would not smoke inhalation, but the carbon carbon monoxide or CO2 fumes will kill you in there.
Well,
When I come home from
they're
work,
ventilated.
I mean they say they are, but it's not moving fast enough to get rid of all of those vehicles in there.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it's not fast enough to move all those vehicles. Because when I
Oh,
come home from work and I travel through there, man, I usually have my windows down and my sunroof open. But by the time I get to the tunnel, I close up everything immediately.
Gotcha.
You'll pass out trying to breathe that air.
Mm.
okay. Okay, right? Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Just trying to get around this new way of going forward. Anyway, we got here the S&P 500 monthly view. What we got here? We're going all the way back to 2000, if my eyes can see. This is the 2009 low that started the rise. I'm starting here just to show that everybody that's a technical trader, especially if they use like Fibonacci extensions, from the time the price broke out here in April of 2013, this tool went up everywhere. And this particular high here was the line in the sand, the danger zone of where we were able to project with this tool that this trend would likely end. Now, maybe it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you got millions of people all over everywhere using the same tool, same technique, but sure enough, the price just kind of getting funky. And as an Elliott wave trader, and again, this is a monthly chart. I don't even know what this is. I don't even know how to count this. I mean, to see a chart break this again, a continued rise, an orderly rise like this, which was what you would expect to see on something like a monthly chart. To have this price break down right here at that, in that near that line in the sand and make a lower low, just one candlestick after making a higher high, that's weird. Okay, and you recall here on the Brain Trust, maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I made mention that the put call ratio was extreme. That's bets in the options market that the S&P 500 will fall. So those were options bets against the market, and they were at an extreme level back at that time. I think that we might have been 3 or something. 3, anything above 1 is extreme. Even anything above 1 is extreme. This was like 3 or something absurd like that. So we were getting signals way back then. And again, even according to Elliott Wave theory, I don't even know how to count this. So this is just very strange. So I just wanted to let you see that. So we're everybody's watching to see just how much further we're going to go with that decline. Now the only other thing, let me show you here. Okay, roughly over the last 2 months, you can see on this chart. This is a chart of ETFs basically, and this precious metals ETF has been killing it. 66%, 68%. That's gold. The primary driver of that has been gold. All right. So that's all that talk we were talking about, commodities and stuff that Mike was putting up. And my Patreon folk will recognize this chart. We've been looking at this all week. This is a symbol of gold versus the dollar, Forex symbol, 30-minute chart. We got a double top right here. All eyes are on if the price drops below this line without making a new high. So we're just kind of in an ugly sideways motion with gold, which I showed here, which was where all the money went the last couple of months. So for I'd say this week past, we've pretty much been going sideways, trying to figure out what's going on here. And so the whole question of what the dollar is going to do, if the dollar takes off and starts to rise, then there's going to be some give back in this gold. Now, how far it'll fall, that'll be the big question. And those the oil story that Mike was talking about earlier. If the dollar takes off north, that's going to be disastrous for oil prices. And so all eyes are on the dollar and those foreign currencies, and especially how it relates to gold, especially since, again, going back to that S&P chart, as ugly as this candlestick looks, lower low so soon after starting the trend, and with the singular industry that's really been killing it over the last 2 months being gold. If gold breaks down, then I think we really going to see some nastiness in the S&P 500 if everybody's running to the precious metals and that rolls over too. So all the bullish folk, or people in this safe haven, they better hope that dollar doesn't pick up any strength. Now, it has happened. There have been periods in history where the dollar has risen and gold has risen, but that's very rare. But it's I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is very rare. So I just want to have everybody pay it. Folk know that amidst everything else you hear in the news, pay particular attention to gold versus the dollar in the Forex world, or if you're into the ETFs, that GLD ETF. You know, pay particular attention to that. But that's all I got for the week ahead. It's all about gold and that dollar.
Dope. Very much dope. We hit the threshold on our time limit, so I want to make sure we spend some time on our next hangout that won't be live. We have some business that needs to be taken care of. So thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you have not already done so. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, and make sure you follow Dollar Will. The link is in the chat. Rainy Woman was kindly put that in there, and we'll be back tomorrow with Black Car Talk, as well as open chat too. So make sure you all come back for that. With that being said, peace and shalom.
Good night, all.